Hey Browns fans, this is your chance to join the company of some of the Browns' all-time greats on the first ever Browns fan cruise. Picture this. For 5 unforgettable days, you're sailing across the beautiful Caribbean Sea, reliving the Browns' greatest moments, getting autographs, snapping photos, and celebrating on the beach with your favorite Browns alumni, like Josh Cribbs, Webster Slaughter, Eric Metcalf, and a dozen others. Book now and take advantage of our easy, budget-friendly payment plans on this once-in-a-lifetime, all-inclusive cruise adventure. The clock's ticking, Browns fans. To book your cabin and for more information, visit brownsfancruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today. Browns Fan Cruise, where diehard fans and Browns alumni come together for the trip of a lifetime. Don't wait. Secure your spot today and go Browns!
It's time for the Burning River Sportscast. A lot can change in just 1 week. Surprises and bounce backs littered the landscape in week 2. That same week was all it took for the walls in Berea to come crumbling down. The eternal hope and optimism of Browns fans everywhere dashed in just week 2. In the blink of an eye, the NFL's preeminent running back and superstar was launched into the sky only for gravity to return him into a hodgepodge of lumpy leg and shredded CLs. As Browns fans held their breath, it soon became apparent that the season and possibly career of a fan favorite was not only in jeopardy but over, and a football season full of hopes and dreams flashed before our very eyes. Like the great Jim Croce once melodied, "If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you, Nick Chubb." With the season still young, where do the Brownies go from here? What's the new answer to the run game? Can this team stay competitive despite this loss? Will Deshaun ever earn any of the $230 million in guaranteed cash proffered to him by Jimmy and the boys? And will Nicholas Jamal Chubb return to the Browns like Leroy Brown, badder than old King Kong, and meaner than a junkyard dog? We'll break it all down for you next on the Burning River Sportscast.
I'd argue the Deshaun Watson we're getting right now is the same Baker that was injured.
Agreed.
Like, that's basically what we're getting right now, and I don't like that. Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Two Gloves McGee over there.
He's got dumber hair than I do.
Yeah.
It was still a nice, tight, long-ass kick.
Bone, you got anything to say about Stefanik?
Yeah, what do you call a guy who goes quarterback option left on 4th and 1?
Do we call him Kevin Stefanik?
Smartest guy in the room.
Even better, yeah.
Get your ass ready. It's about to get hot.
Especially Kenny. I know you play DB, so I'd be interested. Doesn't look like it now.
Oh, sure.
I know you played DB, so I'd be interested to get your take on this.
I never missed a kickoff in my life, and let me tell you something, that's one kickoff I will not miss. It's like St. Patrick's Day. Kiss me, I'm Irish. Touch me, I'm French.
Welcome into the Burning River Sportscast, presented by Tappan Media and brought to you by the Cleveland Browns Fan Cruise. I'm your host, Kenny Thunder, joined by my co-host and founder of Egyptian Ladies Lesbian Lingerie line, Ooh La La Sphinx. He's red, he's hot, he's Ronnie Jams, along with our trusty board op, who keeps a stable of pregnant and recently postpartum women in his garage to produce him an endless supply of milk, the man with the healthiest vitamin D-filled bones in the game, the Big Bone Man. Big Bone, how's the Bone family?
Bone family's great. They're feeling good, and they're alive.
All right. That's good. Back to Red Hot. 2 questions.
Yes.
If you and Browns alum Frank Stams founded a political party, what would it be called?
Why do you keep doing this? It would be called the Donuts.
Donuts?
I just love donuts, man.
All right. Number 2. Elephants and donkeys are old news. What would your mascot be?
The donut.
A donut. Not like the Cleveland Stammers?
Nah, I don't like it. It's Yeah, I just like donuts, man.
Okay.
Which was weird because you'd think that would come from you.
Guy likes donuts.
Hey, you like to see homos naked? That's cool, man. Whatever.
Do you want to know?
see?
Do you want to know where you can find our podcast?
Oh yeah, where can all the donut lovers find our podcast?
You can find our podcast wherever you get our podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Castro, Good Pods, and so many more. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, the only place that you can find our video podcast. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Our handle for all of those socials and YouTube is at Burning River Sportscast. And we are on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, as well, with the handle Burning River Pod. And while you're at it, one last thing you can do while you're online is check out our merch. That's at www.thetapinmedia.com/shop. We've got shoes, hats, mugs, mouse pads, shirts, shorts, flags, phone cases, you name it, we got it. And the cruise line is officially out.
Swim trunks, slides, tank tops. Do we have tank tops?
we don't. We got t-shirts.
Let's get some tank tops.
All right, I'll do it. And yeah, so make sure you check that out along with everything else in the store. We're constantly adding to that as time goes on. But we've got another great show for you planned today. Despite the terrible news that Kenny mentioned in the opening of the show, today we have an interview with the Middle Tennessee Browns backers. Browns backers organization that's located in the heart of Titans territory. We've got the week 2 recap of the worst day that we can remember as Cleveland Browns fans. We've got an interview with another Browns alumni that will be joining us on the Cleveland Browns fan cruise in the second half of the show. Today's guest, as you alluded to, Frank Stams.
Frank.
I wonder if he will be happy that he's going to be part of the donut party.
Ask him.
And finally, the week 3 preview of the game against the Tennessee Titans. So that takes us to the Burning River news story of the week. All right, so the news story of the week this week, McDonald's has announced that they are getting rid of all self-serve soda machines, and it will now be served only by the cash register person, I guess. You know, they went automated on like everything. They decided to bring something back. They're like, we took away a lot of jobs. We got to give them back. We got to pay $15 an hour for people to get you soda.
I can't figure out what the purpose of this is. I mean, I guess like the only thing I can figure is that because they've gone so far to the gig economy, to like DoorDash and Uber Eats, that they have so little in-store visitation that maybe there's a cost savings there, but like people are still going to drink the pop, and that's like the best part of going into McDonald's.
So like, are all Coca-Cola Freestyles just gone now? Like out of those places, or do they just have Freestyle in the back?
Well, no, they're not going to be at McDonald's anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, but the only cost savings I see is like the people that come in and they're like, I want this one, nah, dump it. I want this one, nah, dump it. But I mean, how much money are you actually saving?
But that's the best part about going to McDonald's is because you can sometimes you're not sure what you're in the mood for, and you can just kind of get a Sprite and you taste. You know, they didn't change this one. This kind of tastes soda water. You're like, let me try the Coke. Coke is just good. It's so good.
There we go. Instead, now I got to take it back.
And I just hate having to wait at a register for.
If the salad comes on top, I send it back.
I hate having to wait at a register for a refill. Like that's just so inconvenient. But I guess it's true. Like I haven't. When's the last time you've been inside of a McDonald's to eat and sat down and ate a meal?
I don't.
I mean, it's definitely pre-pandemic for me.
Oh yeah, me too. That goes for just about any fast food place. Like you just get it and go.
Like
you get, in your case, you get a DoorDash. I know you DoorDash everything. So
true. Even the last time I went into a McDonald's, it wasn't to get food. It was just to pee. Like on a road trip.
That's actually the reason we go into fast food place. Like actually inside the fast food places most of the time as well. There's road trip peas.
And we even ordered food there, and then we just took it back to the car. We were like, let's just eat in the car.
Yeah, I don't want to eat here. This place is dumb.
But I don't know. Something about it just makes me sad. Like I have a young son who now is going to grow up in a world where he can't just mix all 17 flavors of soda together.
Feels bad. Back when I was a kid.
Feel bad.
Back when I was a kid.
That was the best part of going to a place like that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys are as turned down as we are, but you can't get soda on your own at McDonald's anymore.
I was as turned down as I ever was until Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And then I was super more
there. So with that, let's get into the Week 2 recap. All right, so this week the Cleveland Browns were beaten on one of the weirdest most tragic nights that I can remember as a Browns fan. We lost game 26-22. The Pittsburgh Steelers, let's start with them. Let's run through the stats fairly quickly here because, we want to get into some of the discussion around storylines with the game.
I don't even know that we need any of these pleasantries. Like, no one had any stats that were really that great.
We're going to do it anyways because it's what we do and it's what our fans expect. The Pittsburgh Steelers, let's start with their offense. Kenny Pickett, 15 of 30, 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. George Pickens, 4 receptions, 127 yards and a touchdown. Besides that one big catch, his big touchdown, he really didn't do anything. Najee Harris, 10 carries, 43 yards. Jalen Warren, 6 carries, 20 yards, 4 receptions, 66 yards. Their defense, though, was a different story. Because their offense was pretty unimpressive, but their defense, 6 sacks, 3 turnovers forced, 2 touchdowns. T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith both had touchdowns, both had sacks. It was they kind of feasted on our offensive line all night. And then their special teams, Chris Boswell, 2 for 2 field goals, 2 for 2 extra points, which leads us to the Cleveland Browns. On offense, Deshaun Watson was about as mediocre can be. 22 of 40 for 235 yards, a touchdown, an interception, 6 carries for 22 yards. So we'll stop there real quick. What are your thoughts on Deshaun, especially, obviously we'll get into Nick Chubb and some of that stuff here shortly, but what were your thoughts on Deshaun Watson?
Look, I know it's week 2 and it's early in the season. He's obviously got to turn it around. But if you remember a couple weeks ago, I said, all you people that came at Baker for Baker's numbers, keep that same energy. Because you know who is 31st out of 32 quarterbacks in the NFL in yards right now? Deshaun Watson. You know who's 31st? You know who's completing 70% of his passes and is ranked 11th in the NFL in yards right now?
Probably Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. So it's just, we're not getting Baker back. I know it's not part of the discussion. It's frustrating because this is exactly what we said about Baker. You can't win. We can't get to the next level because our quarterback can't throw for more than 250 yards in a game. Our quarterback's not able to lead us down the field at the end of the game and win a game-winning drive. It's all the same shit. So the question is, was Baker bad? Is Deshaun bad? Or is our coaching bad? Which one is it?
Well, you know where we all, or at least where I tend to fall on that. But, I mean, I am one of the guys that I was excited about Deshaun Watson. I've given him the benefit of the doubt. I've said up to this point, he has to shake off the rust, whatever. It's been 8 games, though. He's officially had half a season in an entire offseason to work with the coaching staff, to work with the players, to gel and do whatever he's got to do to get back to where he was. I mean, for $230 million guaranteed, you need to not only get back to where you were when you were playing for Houston, but you probably have to be better than that. And he's nowhere near that. He's not even sniffing the numbers that he had when he was in Houston. And so to me, half a season in, full off season in, I mean, even a guy, again, I was excited about the move. Personal stuff aside with Deshaun Watson, I was excited about the football player Deshaun Watson. And I mean, right now he's just not showing it. And it's starting to get to the point where if you're not questioning at this point whether he can actually make it back to the player he was in Houston, at least,
Chad Powers,
then you're not paying attention. I mean, no matter how much you wanted to stand by him when this whole thing started, if you aren't questioning him at this point, and concerned, at least concerned about where he's going to end up this season, then the wool's been pulled completely over your eyes, and like Kenny just said, you're not coming with the same energy that you came at Baker.
You can't treat him differently because he came. Let's not forget that Deshaun Watson once led the league in passing yards. Yeah. They also went 4-12 that year. I just have such a hard time with that we're giving Deshaun kind of a free pass here, saying he'll get it together and we just need more time. Well, we just, as we saw on Monday night, time.
Well, that's not even getting into some of the specifics of Monday night. I mean, he had 2 face mask penalties. He pushed a ref.
He threw a pick on the very first play.
He threw that wasn't his fault. Let's be honest. It hit Harrison Bryant in the hands.
Look, again, same energy. At the end of the day, it's a stat line. Baker didn't get the benefit of the doubt when he threw a pick that hit somebody in the hands.
That's fair, but I mean, I would say in general that's fair. But
here's my thing. I go back to 2 things. The eye test, which is not only are his stats bad, look at the guy on the field. Look at him on the sideline. He looks lost. He looks defeated. Lost. He looks slow. He plants. If you watch his dropbacks, you watch him get to his final back step. He takes his weird bunny hop where he's double clutching. He looks just like Baker Mayfield, actually, in the same offense. And then nothing happens. And I'll go back to what I said on, I think, our very first show, and I've said it all along, is I'm concerned about this guy's mental fitness. This guy, look, the NFL all but said he did all the things that he was accused of, right? That's why they suspended him. And according to law, he wasn't found liable. But here's the thing. This just seems the only thing.
At the very least, you have to question his mental stability.
Yeah, because there's something going on there, right? Like, this is a guy that thought he could do whatever he wanted, was on top of the world, was in UNICEF commercials and everything else, was the face of the franchise, face of the NFL. And all of a sudden, that all came crumbling down for him. And it's got to be hard. It's almost like when LeBron left for the first time and was playing the villain, and he admitted later that wasn't really his role. To me, I compare it more to Tiger Woods. When you think about Tiger Woods had the most confidence in the world. That's why he won every tournament, because
the biggest fall from grace you can imagine.
You listen to guys that played him, and they said you would get up on Sunday and you knew you were playing Tiger and you knew you were going to lose, because that's how much confidence Tiger Woods had. Throw in a 9-iron through a back SUV window, all of a sudden everything changes, because he was outed as this, pervert, sex addict, whatever you want to call him. And everything that everybody thought they knew about Tiger Woods all of a sudden came crashing down around him. And it took him years to get back to playing for him to where he was winning tournaments.
Oh, and it could be argued he never got back there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. He never got back to the dominance that he had. But I'm just saying, just to win one tournament, would go back to Bay Hill when he won finally. It was years after
we were there.
Incident.
That was phenomenal.
But so he's a different quarterback than he is today, or than he was then. And I think a big part of that is his confidence and where he is mentally. I don't know how you fix that, because that's not something that a normal person goes through.
Yeah, Bone Man, you got any thoughts on Deshaun Watson right now?
I was kind of just disturbed about how many overthrown passes there were, or even at the end of the game where he didn't even give our guy a chance to catch the ball. Like, no shit, they didn't call a penalty on that because the ball was 5 yards out of bounds.
Right, I don't understand all these people that are like, why wasn't there a flag thrown? Well, even if the guy was untouched, there was no way he was catching that ball. Yeah, so go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but no,
and it's the same thing. Even with the first play of the game, the ball was high and outside. It was. Easy pitch and catch. You practice that every day. He knew that play was coming, first play of the game, and he didn't put it where it needed to be. Sure, it touched the receiver's hands. I agree with that, and he should have caught it. But first play of the game.
But put him on him.
You rehearse that. Put it on him.
Yeah.
Yep. That's fair. I mean, those are all fair points.
I mean, the high balls, especially, and I love that Deshaun, Baker used to get in trouble with that too from not being leveraged on his back foot properly and throwing the ball too high for the guys. Deshaun has introduced the ground ball as well.
He's all over the place. He's high, he's low. It's almost like he overcorrects every time.
Baker was never very good at it. Baker threw a lot of balls over guys' heads, but he didn't throw them into the dirt as much as Deshaun.
No.
One more thing. I think one of the biggest things that got under people's skin with Baker was batted down passes. And that was a reoccurring theme on Monday night, and I just thought
how
that was
many were there?
frustrating.
I think there was 2 or 3 that got batted down.
At least 2 or 3,
yeah.
Which I know defenders are looking for that now, and they play
nowadays.
That,
they come up short and they jump and whatever.
But it's still one of those glaring things that you see, and it's just like a drive killer. And
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, I agree. And here's what I'll say is I don't think any of us here is arguing like bring Baker.
No.
There are those Browns fans that are like, go get Baker and bring him back. Like, nobody here is arguing that.
No,
we're just saying
what it is
you gotta see both guys in the same light, and you gotta judge them equally, and not
right.
real hard on Baker, but we give Deshaun Watson the benefit of the doubt on any given day.
What's so frustrating is we were told we were getting an upgrade. And
so far, it just hasn't been there.
There's been no upgrade.
I mean, let's be like I said, I was one of the guys that was really excited about Deshaun Watson and as a football player. But let's be honest, he has not shown that he is an upgrade to this point. In fact, I would argue that he's actually shown he's a downgrade to this point.
Well, yeah, when you think about Baker Mayfield and what he knew and how to run this offense before he got towards labor room up that year, like this was a guy that was growing in a sustainable team and a sustainable franchise. They had draft capital and they had cap room, and all of a sudden you max out your cap room, you pull out all your draft picks. I mean, could Baker have been better if you added some other top talent around him? And he was just as capable as Deshaun Watson is today.
Yeah. I would argue the Deshaun Watson we're getting right now is the same Baker that was injured.
Agreed.
Like, that's basically what we're getting right now, and I don't like that. But let's move on. We've spent enough time talking about Baker and Watson. And
that might be the hottest take of the year.
Well, make sure you cut that out, put that on a short clip, and we'll throw it out there all over the place. Next up here, Nick, the one that we don't want to talk about, but we have to talk about, and we're only gonna talk about him shortly here because we're gonna get into his injury later. But Nick Chubb, before he went down, 10 carries for 64 yards, and he was just starting to carve him up when this happened. So
he looks great again.
Yeah, and we'll move on from that. Like I said, we'll talk about his injury here shortly. Next up, Jerome Ford. Again, we will talk about him shortly. He's going to be featured further later on in the podcast, but he did fill in as best he could in Nick Chubb's stead. The Cleveland Browns wide receivers, Amari Cooper, 7 receptions for 90 yards. Njoku, 4 receptions for 48 yards. Elijah Moore, 3 receptions for 36 yards. And here's the deal. Cooper had an okay day, but besides that, nobody really did anything. It seems like we're having deja vu. Like, I saw this story when we had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and whoever else, and we just can't fucking figure out how to get our goddamn wide receivers involved. Like, how can you not get them the ball? We have so much talent in the wide receiver room. Hell, Cedric Tillman's riding the bench. That's how much talent we have in the wide receiver room, and we can't get any of them the ball.
That's why I didn't need Austin Watkins, because why would you sign him when you're not going to throw receivers the ball?
Right. I don't understand. Like, how hard is it? Elijah Moore, who is arguably like our top weapon on our team.
From an athletic standpoint, sure.
He's the most dynamic when the ball is in his hands, and we just can't figure out how to get him the ball.
No. I mean, and it's not that they haven't tried a little bit because they put him on end rounds and things from time to time, but there's just something's not right there. It's not right. And thank God for Amari Cooper because at least he catches the ball when you throw it to him.
Yeah.
No, I think it's hard to get receivers involved when this offense that we were told was a brand new air raid, something we've never seen before, is the same 3 tight end sets that we've always seen Kevin Stefanski come out with. I mean, hell, it was the second half of the game in a tight game. And
don't get too far into coaching because we got a whole segment on that.
Well, they've got Pierre Strong out in a 3 tight end set as one of these guys, and they're throwing the ball to him
at a critical moment in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, Pierre Strong. You've got all these other weapons. You're throwing the ball to Pierre Strong?
Come on. And like I said, we will get into coaching here in a minute, but let's move on to defense because I'm sick of talking about how putrid our offense was, especially once Nick Chubb went down. On the defensive side, they looked phenomenal again. A lot of energy from start to finish, only allowed 12 points. They were again confident. They were again disruptive. They were again relentless. Unfortunately for them, the offense gave up more points to the Steelers than the defense did. The defense only got home for 2 sacks in this one. Taki got one, and then there was half each on the same play awarded to Shelby Harris and Mo Hurst.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I agree the defense played really, really well. I need better out of Myles Garrett.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say that since I kind of glazed over it, but Myles Garrett's, it's the same complaint that we've had for him from the beginning. We love Myles Garrett. We think he's a phenomenal athlete. We think he's great for the Browns. But we are realistic and don't think he's ever going to be that vocal leader that everybody wants him to be. We think he's more of a lead by example kind of guy, and he just plays his game. But here's the deal. Myles Garrett also disappears towards the end of the game a lot. And he did it again in this one. He was nowhere to be found on pass rushes towards the end of the game.
He was nowhere to be found on pass rushes anytime during the game. I mean, I need Myles when Kenny Pickett is standing back there just holding the ball.
Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. 2 Gloves McGee over there.
He's got dumber hair than I do.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it is frustrating every time I see Myles Garrett seemingly take a play or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 off in a row, and he's just kind of jogging out there.
You're the best player on the field. That's the thing that we talk about Myles is like no one can stop him. Anytime he wants to get back there, he can. Then fucking do it.
Yeah, I agree. Bone, you got a take on that?
The weather outside is weather.
I don't know. It's I feel like he did his job, but he needs to make sacks. That's the most important part. I feel like last week he had that big moment where he sacked Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
This week he didn't. So
You heard it from Bone. We need more sacks out of. He needs to make sacks.
This is be a multi-sack game.
Yeah. No, and we totally agree. And I just want him to pick up the effort in those, especially in the key moments of the game. Like I don't care if you take. Honestly, I really don't care if you take a few plays off. You're the best player on the defense. Sometimes you have to
Take them all off and then make a critical sack.
If you're there in the critical points of the game and you're coming up with big plays when it matters most, then nobody's going to care. The problem is you take the plays off when it matters most. Next up here, though, Grant Delpit, again, was all over the place. 6 tackles, a pass breakup, and an interception. And he was phenomenal, and so was the rest of the secondary, to be honest with you. There was only that one busted coverage that I mentioned earlier with George Pickens, and you could see it wasn't busted coverage like we saw last year, where it happened just all the time. It was busted coverage like, somebody legitimately missed like one assignment, and George Pickens happened to be wide open.
And those things happen. It's the NFL. The teams you're playing are good. George Pickens is a stud.
Is good.
I mean, the fact that they held him to, 3 catches at 100 yards is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's their best player. He's their best weapon offensively.
Well, I mean, you take away that one catch, they held him to 3 catches for like 40 yards.
Yeah, and it still is a new defense, right? So I still give Jim Schwartz and his Jim Shorts a little bit of leeway here for those types of plays because there are new calls. You've got a bunch of new faces in the secondary playing different positions and things. So and you've had some injuries too back there a little bit. So you got guys in and out. Those things are going to happen, but those things should be overcomeable when you're playing an opponent that's inferior to you.
Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, the defense did that. They did overcome things. It was the offense that let everybody down. The defense played well the rest of the game, even after that busted coverage. You know, last year's defense, that busted coverage happened, and then all of a sudden the wheels fell off, and they were terrible the rest of the game. This year, they tightened it up, and they played well throughout the rest of the game, and they looked good. So, special teams, Dustin Hopkins. Bone Man, your boy is no longer perfect.
All right, so he's not perfect. He's 5 for 6 on the year. All right, but you don't have that deep, sick gut feeling when he kicks the ball. Even the miss, it was a good miss. It wasn't.
That's fair. It was
wide
close.
Left. It was still a nice, tight, long ass kick, and I still like him.
No, it was a close miss. I will give you that. And to his credit, he came back with a 55-yarder. And when he came out for the 55-yarder, I was like, oh god, the last one was missed. Are we going to start down this road again? Where you're bringing him out for a 55-yard kick to redeem himself?
He smashed it.
Dead nut center.
Dead nut center.
Nuts.
So 2 for 3 field goals. He played well. Which brings us to coaching. Oh, boy. So we kind of mentioned it a couple times already, and I didn't want to get too far into it before we got to this segment because we're going to start with the head coach, Kevin Stefanski. Terrible again in this one. This is the Kevin Stefanski I remember from last year.
Yeah, he's officially Stefanik again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's with that performance, he is back to Stefanik. I have no respect for this man. I'm just so goddamn sick of seeing him just, I don't even know what he does out there sometimes. Like, it was your moment. Like, it was your moment. Our leader went down. It was your moment to rally the team, bring them together, and do something big here. And instead, it just feels like we were lost. Once Chubb went down, everybody didn't know what to do, and they were looking to somebody to step up and be that guy. And neither Stefanik or Deshaun Watson, which we already mentioned, stepped up and did anything about it.
Yeah, I get it. It was hard. When Nick Chubb went down and you realized all the potential that this season held, all of a sudden had this big rain cloud hanging over it. It was awful. Hell, I quit tweeting for the game. I shut the Twitter machine down. I was like,
legitimately shut Twitter down.
I was like, I literally can't focus on anything besides the fact that like my heart hurts because of the Nick Chubb injury. But
I felt like I was going to throw up the rest of the game, but go on.
But that's why they pay Stefanik what he gets paid.
Yeah.
They pay him and for those moments when you have to bring a team together and be a leader of men. You can't just get whittled down and go, oh boy, this is not good. Because that's what we were all seeing at home. But we're not the head coach.
Well, and here's the biggest problem. So TJ Watt in his post-game interview said that they knew the play on the game-sealing fumble recovery for a touchdown. And it's something we've been saying for 3 years now. For 3 years. His play calling is predictable. We don't run enough shorter routes to get the QB in a rhythm. And he is terrible, absolutely terrible, with situational awareness and play calling. I just don't understand it. Like, how do you go back to the same shit every time we need a play that doesn't work. It didn't work before. It's not going to work this time.
Why do I feel like that every play that goes for positive yards has a level of difficulty like above 10? I feel like
there's no routes that are anything less than like 15 yards and a 5-step drop.
It's a 5-step drop, and I'm watching Deshaun Watson literally throw the lasers down the sideline where it's just him and a receiver and a DB, and the wide receiver just has to make a ridiculous jump ball to get the catch. Like, that's the only thing this offense has brought to us this year, is watching them make the hardest throw possible on every possession. And then they can't hit the easy things. They don't do any of the fundamentals well.
Scariest environment imaginable.
That's all you had to say. It's like scary. Yeah. No, it's. I mean, the fact that TJ Watt came out and said that, like, that's damning, and that's all you need to know. Because for the last 3 years, Kevin Stefanski told us he's the head coach and offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's about time for that shit to end.
He thinks he's an offensive coordinator. He's not even a good offensive coordinator.
No.
When the other team is telegraphing your plays,
maybe if you had time to actually spend time drawing up plays and doing what you need to do as an offensive coordinator, but you're the head coach. You have more responsibilities than just the offense. So give up that play calling. It's about time.
And the thing is, again, just going back to...
Or if you want to go in and tell Haslam, hey, I'll just be the offensive coordinator. You need a new head coach. Like, whatever.
Yeah, hand in your papers. Tell him, my name is Stefanik, and I'm done. No, but I'll just go back again to just the Nick Chubb injury. And this was a team that was not as good as you. This should not have been moving the heavens and the earth to motivate this team to win. It should be like, hey, guys, next man up. I know this one hurts. We'll talk about it later. We got to get our shit together, win this football game.
Yep.
Simple as that. But it doesn't seem like he had that conversation, nor anybody else on that sideline.
No, from that point forward, everybody's just like head down, like nothing.
They were me on my couch at home. I was devastated.
Exactly, and we understand it. But you're the football team,
and I'm a fan,
football coach, and you need to, yeah. Bone, you got anything to say about Stefanik?
Yeah, what do you call a guy who goes quarterback option left on 4th and 1?
Do we call him Kevin Stefanik?
Smartest guy in the room.
Even better, yeah. Yeah. And we said it all last year, and we'll continue to say it this year. The only guy in the room that Kevin Stefanski is outsmarting is himself.
Yeah,
like,
over and over and over again.
Yeah, it seems like week in and week out at this point. So I'm not sure what else to say. It feels like we're kind of beating a dead horse, but we're going to continue to do this all year long until he turns things around and actually does something.
Because here's the thing. Look, I want Kevin Stefanski to be the coach of the Cleveland Browns. I want him to be great. I want him to be the 2020 COVID Stefanski that was out there winning games, doing new things that we hadn't seen before, and was creative with his offense.
Out there snapping necks and cashing checks.
Yeah, but like that's not what this has become. And you're in real danger now losing the season because you got a game coming up this week against an AFC opponent in the Titans that we'll talk about later, but you also have the Ravens then before the bye. If you go into that bye week 1-3 and Deshaun continues to look bad and your play calling continues to look like shit and the other team knows what you're calling before you call it,
the noise is going to start getting loud here in Cleveland, and the heat, the temperature is going to start going up right under your ass, Kevin Stefanski.
Get your ass ready. It's about to get hot. I don't want Kevin Stefanski to be fired, but he's going to get himself fired.
Yeah. Moving on, though,
getting your head coach fired 4 weeks in is not a good recipe for anything. That's a recipe for success.
That's a recipe for losing. Losing lots and lots of games.
I mean, I guess the Cavs did it when they fired David Blatt, but
that was different. It's not the same sport. But let's move on. We could spend the entire podcast talking about our hate for Kevin Stefanik in games like this. But we'll move on to a coach that has shown us why we brought him in and has had his unit looking fantastic both games so far this season, Jim Schwartz. I mean, do you have anything to say other than that? I mean, he's just advertised, right? It was the exact reason we brought him in.
I think he holds his players accountable, and I think it was when they were talking during the game about if you make a big play on defense and you aren't celebrating and getting just revved up and ready to go, like he's on your ass and you're running laps.
That's how it should be. We don't need Kevin Stefanik just stone face no matter what happens. It works for Nick Chubb because he runs for 150 yards a goddamn game.
Well, he's all business, but like on defense, you got to have that attitude. Your job is to kick the other team's ass. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, you mentioned it. He wants them celebrating. It's kind of the Deion Sanders mentality. Like he wants his his players to play well and let you know that they're playing well. And that's what they've been doing. And they have this
confidence breeds confidence.
This swagger about them that, I mean, they're intimidating. You watch them, it's no joke. I know we're only 2 games in, and this could completely change as the season goes on.
Oh, it will.
But so far, I mean, this is the nastiest Browns defense I've ever seen through 2 games.
Yeah.
It's crazy to watch because I as soon as they're on the field, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, we're winning whatever matchup we have right now. We're winning it.
Whatever he's doing, I feel like he has just like unleashed every single person on the defense to like just hit their full potential and like just play balls out. Like,
well, it's funny
ridiculous.
you say that and use that phrase because that's what they all said in the offseason. They all kept saying it over and over again. They said we're off the leash or we're unchained or like use terms like that to say basically he's telling us go out there and play. Stop thinking when you get out there. Just go out there and do. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're all doing. And they're making big play after big play and they're looking pretty damn good. So let's move on though. Bubba Ventrone to close out our coaching breakdown here. First of all, tell your returners to get away from the ball if they don't plan to fair catch it. I mean, holy shit, there was twice in this game where somebody called fair catch and then just kind of stood next to it and let the ball hit right next to him. I'm like, what are you doing? Just run away.
Then they tackled 2 guys that were making fair catches. So
well, that
what
too.
the fuck?
Yeah. If a fair catch is happening, just go away.
Just go away.
Can we get back to the fair catch? I feel like there was like 5 times where they just let it drop and they downed us on, within the 5. And did they just not trust? Did they just not trust somebody to catch it? Because, I mean, that killed us.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I don't know why we did that. But that's what I was saying. Even on those, like 1, just catch the ball. And 2, if you're not going to catch it, get away from it. It's not hard.
Right.
I mean, luckily it didn't cost us anything in this game.
I feel like their punter could be player of the game because, I mean,
pinned us inside the 5 like 3 times.
Yeah. Well, he was the only player on our team with stats, so.
No, not our punter, their punter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Besides that, I mean.
We played so good, we didn't bring our punter out.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
I have on here, besides that, the special teams was fine, but I mean, I guess that's a lot of stuff that we just tacked on there. So, Bubba Ventrone, get your shit together. Obviously, we're not calling for his firing yet, like we were for Prefer after 2 weeks last season. So at least we got that going for us.
Here's what worries me right now, though, is that if this thing goes south and it goes south quickly, all the good things that Jim Schwartz is doing, do you end up? I mean, he would probably be promoted as the interim head coach, but that's still only keeping him then for another 14 weeks because they're going to retain the coaching staff if this thing blows up. So I would be super disappointed if Stefanik can't get his shit together and we end up losing Jim Schwartz because of this whole thing.
Yeah, it would be egregious. But no, so overall, total yards, Cleveland 408, Pittsburgh 255. First downs, Cleveland 20, Pittsburgh 9. Time of possession, Cleveland 35-28, Pittsburgh 24-32. And yes, this is a game that we lost. Penalties, and this is kind of where you start to see why. Cleveland 8 for 81 yards, Pittsburgh 5 for 31. And here's the big one. Turnovers, Cleveland 4, Pittsburgh 2. There's no reason we should ever have 4 turnovers in a game. It's just nonsense.
And 3 of those were from your quarterback.
Yeah. So in other Browns news here, my player to watch this past week, I will say this, was DeJuan Jones. And while the offensive line as a whole was pretty bad, DeJuan Jones did receive a 74.6 passing block grade in this game, and that was the highest grade among all Browns offensive linemen. So, it isn't surprising. The number itself isn't surprising because they all played like ass, the 74.6. That's pretty low, you would think, for the highest grade pass blocker, but they all played like ass. But the fact that DeJuan Jones had the highest grade was pretty surprising to me, especially because if you were on socials, he was getting blown up like he was. Like, people were talking about how bad he was, and I'm like, I think he's doing okay.
I think
he's up against
fine.
TJ Watt pretty much the whole game. So
yeah, I mean, I think TJ Watt is arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, which is sad because we have Myles Garrett on our team. But Myles Garrett doesn't bring the same energy that TJ has.
No. I think that's why TJ Watt gets more exposure as far as like people talk about him more. He comes up big in big time moments, and that's why he's always going to be higher up as far as defensive MVP voting, unless Myles Garrett just has an unreal season, which he's not really off to that start yet. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so next up here, though, this is where we could talk about it. I know we've kind of been putting it off a little bit. We're all devastated. We've alluded to it a couple times.
Real quick, wanted to finish one other thing on the defense before we talk about Nick Chubb. I saw his brother JJ tweeted that he's with his sack they had against the Browns. I think he hit 81.5 sacks.
Now the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time leader, I think.
He's now the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time leader in sacks, and basically he's the best player in the game. Should be a Hall of Famer either. Clay Matthews officially 80.5 sacks in his career. Can't step to Hall of Fame. And we know a few of those seasons they weren't even counting sacks because it wasn't a stat yet. So just my plug for Clay.
Just to say, put Clay Matthews in the Hall of Fame.
No one disrespects T.J. Watt in his game. He is great, but they have the same number of sacks, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, fair. No, I agree. Clay Matthews should be in, and I don't know why he's not yet. But again, I mean, Kenny did it again. We're putting off talking about Nick Chubb because we're all just so devastated. It's by far the worst thing that has ever happened to me as a Browns fan. He is officially done for the season with one of the nastiest looking knee injuries that you'll probably ever see. I don't recommend you go and look for that picture. I know that a lot of people blew it up on social media and put it even next to his injury at Georgia, things like that. It was about as bad can be. And it was the same knee that he dislocated in college. And with that injury, he tore his MCL, PCL, and LCL in college. It was told at the time he may never play again, and here we are, very similar injury. I mean, if you had to ask me, I would say he probably dislocated his knee again. He probably tore those same ligaments, if not his ACL as well.
Well, your knee just doesn't bend that way.
No. But here's the deal. I mean, he did battle back to become the best running back in the game after that injury in college.
What worries me is I think there's a difference between coming back from that injury at 19 and at 26, 27.
Yeah, and I will say I agree with that. But I will say that this one looks like it may be an even worse injury, to be honest with you. The one in college was a non-contact injury. He planted his foot. It kind of his knee buckled backwards when he dislocated his knee. This one was full on. Somebody dove at your legs, and your knee was bent 90 degrees in the wrong direction. So we still don't know the extent of it. We will find that out in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But the weight of this and the effect it will have on the team cannot be understated enough. Nick Chubb is the heart and soul of the team. He's their undisputed leader.
Despite the fact that they didn't make him a captain this year.
Yeah, they go as he goes, and because of that, I was not surprised at all that we couldn't seem to put anything together after he went down. Regardless of, I know we've already talked about it a little bit, regardless of whose fault you think the loss was, or who was or wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, it just, bottom line is, it was going to be hard winning anything after that happened. And so, even when we took the lead at 22-19, I just kind of felt like this night feels bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up losing this game.
What's the Thanos line? Like, what did it cost? Cost everything.
Yeah.
Look, I have been struggling for the words, the understanding of something like this happens. It's just the literal definition of, like, why do bad things happen to good people? And for someone like Nick Chubb, who's just a consummate professional, who does everything the right way, this is a guy that scores and kind of hands the ball back to the referee, right? There's not a lot of flash to his game other than the fact that he's just the best in the world at what he does. And just to have something go so badly, so gruesome, it was upsetting. It was disappointing. Like we said in the open, I mean, you kind of see the whole season flash before your eyes and go, man, what could have been? Because, look, we've talked at length about this roster, and it is the best roster the Browns have put together in several years on paper. And if they could get things going in the right direction, whether it's Stefanik or Deshaun, all these guys, this team could be special. And it could still be special. It's just going to be a lot harder to do now because you can't just replace what Nick Chubb does for you. So just super disappointing, feels bad all around. I've been just absolutely devastated since the moment it happened. And, we wish the guy nothing but the best and a healthy recovery. But again, I would say coming back from this injury, 8 years later, to have the same kind of knee reconstruction done.
It's hard to do that at 28.
It's harder to do. He was right in the middle of his prime, and this year was a year that I think there was a ton of expectations that he would be a league leader in rushing. For the first time, I think this is the only thing Nick Chubb hasn't done is led the league in rushing. And this seemed like a year that could have been perfect for him, the way things played out in terms of personnel moves and in his role in the offense, because he was going to get such a bulk of the running load. He's just going to get all the load. But look, just super dissatisfying.
Laugh to keep from crying.
Super dissatisfying all the way around. And look, I think what's really unfortunate here, and that I don't think anyone's talking about yet because there's still the shock and the just disappointment of it all, is this could not have been positioned better for the front office. They've made it very clear that the offense going forward is Deshaun's offense. It's going to run through Deshaun and his arm. The NFL has made it very clear that running backs aren't worth a damn. And so this is a perfect opportunity for them to come back and say, they could dead cap Nick and it would save them money. And not like $1 million. It would save them like $8 million, I think. So this could very well be the end of Nick Chubb as a Cleveland Brown. Whether or not he recovers fully or not, this gives the front office the excuse it needs to say, hey, look, we're going to run this thing through Deshaun and we're going to play running back by committee and we'll see where that takes us. Yeah. And that's, I think, the second most disappointing thing about this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's really, really unfortunate. But I do want to ask you guys about something here. I heard a lot of chatter in the last couple days since Nick Chubb went down. People calling out Minkah Fitzpatrick. They're saying it was a cheap shot in targeting and saying he should be suspended for the entire year. I just want to get both Bone and Kenny's thoughts on this because I have my own, and I especially Kenny. I know you play DB, so I'd be interested. Doesn't look like it now.
Oh, sure.
I know you played DB, so I'd be interested to get your take on this. We'll start with you, Kenny.
So the question is this a cheap shot? Is it targeting? Yeah, I heard a lot of this talk too, and frankly, it's bullshit. This was not something that Minkah Fitzpatrick was intending to do. I think we've seen those types of plays in the past, but until we find out that there's a bounty gate, incentive behind this whole thing,
Greg Williams ain't there.
I have a hard time believing that Minkah Fitzpatrick tried to do this. It was an awkward tackle in the middle of a pile, in a pretty important moment of the drive. And look, I just think weird things happen. You get tangled up, and it's not great. I've heard guys talking about should there be an intent to wrap. Should that be the definition of a tackle? And I'm like, why are we going to over legislate the game? I get it. Nick Chubb got hurt, and it sucks. It's
terrible. It's the worst.
I wish I had someone to blame and just say, you're the asshole that did it, and you should have done something differently. But the fact of the matter is, this is one of those inferred risks that you take anytime you step on the field, that sometimes bad things happen that are really no one's fault, and it's just a complete accident. And I think that's what this was. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, here's the thing: how do you stop Nick Chubb?
That was legs out from under him.
That was what they taught us growing up. Was you make a tackle, you get a big guy run at you, especially a strong running back. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. The low guy wins. Period.
Yep. Bone, what are your thoughts on this?
That's exactly how I would have tried to tackle Nick Chubb. I mean, I probably would have died, but I mean, that's literally.
Here's the deal. So we got some. I mean, obviously this was at the high school level, but we got Bone Man here, who was 165 pounds, playing middle linebacker in high school. So he has some experience with taking on bigger dudes.
There's nothing more embarrassing than getting run over and for everybody to see, and he's doing it at national level. Like Nick Chubb is probably the most powerful running back in the game. And
You seen the legs on that dude?
It was within the 10 yards, right? I remember exactly where it was. I mean, he's trying to stop a touchdown,
Right.
Yep.
And you're playing to win, to go not 0-2. You're trying to make a play,
Yep.
and I thought it was clean. It was a little weird. I hope
It looked weird,
I hope that's just noise about putting more red tape on how you tackle people. Because I feel like they already do enough of that. And it'd just be terrible for the game.
It's funny. I thought actually we would at least get one of us that disagreed, but I guess the fact that we've all played at some level before understands that when you're taking on a guy that's much bigger than you. Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure Nick Chubb has at least 30 to 40 pounds on Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Easily.
How else are you going to take him down? And that's what DBs are taught. And for all those people that are saying, well, he needs to at least wrap and look like he's trying to make a tackle, I'm sorry, but that's not what DBs are taught.
No.
They're taught to literally go in, and when you're that undersized compared to the running back, you kind of do this, it's almost like a leg sweep type tackle where you throw like your shoulder and back at just below their knees.
You just got to body him with anything you have.
That's just what you're trying to do. And sometimes you get run over anyways.
I mean,
but that's what you do.
A lot of the time, you're not going to even make that solo tackle.
And so
you're going to be there to slow him down so somebody else bigger than you can actually hold on to that guy.
I agree. And so I have a couple things here that I wanted to make sure I talked about. The first is the fact that this is what the game has become. That's what a lot of people are talking about, is with all the focus on concussions and head injuries and those types of things, it has forced safeties, especially more than any other position, it has forced safeties to now they can't come in, and when somebody's wrapped up and already kind of taken control of, they can't come in and deliver that big blow to knock them down. Instead, they got to just go in and dive at their legs, because if they hit them up high, they could get fined, they could get suspended, whatever else, and that hurts their team. So what are they going to do? They're going to go at their legs. And what happens when you go at people's legs, and especially below the knee? The number of knee injuries and lower body, lower leg injuries is going to increase significantly. And I think this is just a product of that. In addition, there was a lot of people talking about, well, he was already wrapped up, there's no need to do that. It's Nick freaking Chubb. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I watched the replay. I'm pretty sure if Minkah Fitzpatrick didn't come in and do that, he was getting out of that tackle and scoring. He was on the verge of shrugging that tackle off, throwing that guy to the ground, and getting out of it and scoring a touchdown. So if Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't do that, that's 6 points the other way. So.
How many times have you seen Nick Chubb come out of a pile like that?
A lot. So, I think that, Kenny, you nailed it at the beginning of this. All this talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick targeting. Do I think the Steelers are a dirty team? Hell yes. Do I hate the Steelers? Yes. But it wasn't a dirty play. It was a football play. He did what he needed to do as the safety of the Shittsburgh Steelers. I just think it's bullshit, everybody coming at Minkah Fitzpatrick and saying that this was an intentional move. It's also essentially a coworker. Even though they're on opposite teams, it's a coworker that you're saying this guy intentionally came in and hurt. And more so than ever, players are friends with other players around the league, division rival or not. And I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, look, I think, again, assuming that there's no bounty gate going on, Minkah Fitzpatrick probably feels bad.
We're going to find out that Greg Williams was a consultant.
He probably feels bad about that. No one's in it to end someone's career.
No.
So
he probably feels terrible now.
That's what I'm saying. He probably feels bad about it, but I don't think there was anything intentional about it at all. I think if Minkah Fitzpatrick wraps Nick Chubb there, you know what he does? He ends up in Nick Chubb's backpack on his way to the end zone. Yeah. Like, that's all that he does. He's just getting a piggyback ride into the end zone. You have to tackle differently when you're the undersized man. This whole discussion about that has just been pissing me off all day long. Because the last thing that we need is more rules in this game that make it harder for the defense to play.
Football's a brutal sport, and sometimes brutal injuries happen.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It sucks that it was our guy.
We're going to miss Nick Chubb, and we wish it didn't happen, but it did.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Every time I blinked today. I was like, did I just wake up from a bad dream?
I hope so. But you didn't.
I will say this. There was a dirty play in this game that was very visible because it got played on the replay.
Are we going to put it behind us?
I don't know if I can even find it, but if I can, I will. There was a dirty play in this game when Zadarius Smith went down on the no contact injury when he rolled his ankle or whatever, when he was coming behind and fell down and missed a couple plays. He fell down again, not being contacted by anybody. And the two guys from Pittsburgh looked at each other and they said, this guy, and they basically belly flopped on him on the ground. And I was like, that's a dirty play.
Yeah.
You want to see a dirty play? That's a dirty. They watched this guy fall that no one touched. That's a dirty play.
That's dirty. What Minkah Fitzpatrick did was a football play.
Agreed.
In response to Nick Chubb going down, the Browns did sign Kareem Hunt back to the team
Big
today.
Reem.
So Big Reem is back. They say they plan to keep Ford as the primary back for the rest of the season and use Hunt to spell him. But here's all I'll say about that is we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, it won't last very long. Ford's already put the ball on the ground this year. He hasn't looked great in pass protection. And Hunt has familiarity with the system and with the playbook. And he's I still think he has plenty of tread left on the tires there. So, as long as Jerome Ford can stay in the number one slot, great. But I just think it's going to be, in general, this is going to be running back by committee. But you need somebody to like Hunt that you can depend on in crucial situations, because I don't know that Jerome Ford, even if he's your primary back, is he your third down back.
Yeah, I totally agree. And speaking of Jerome Ford, that takes us to the Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week, baby!
Doesn't matter, man. You got to play tough people in the National Football League. You got to be ready, and we got to be the dogs that we are every time we step on there on Sunday and be ready to attack and don't stop until we're in that locker room.
All right, so this week's Burning River Sportscast, the Dog of the Week is Jerome Ford. 16 rushes for 106 yards, including a 69-yard run.
69.
That set up a touchdown and temporarily gave us a lead. He had 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. And look, we've said it already. You can't say it enough. You can't replace Nick Chubb. But he did his best job to fill in a tough situation where you're a young back. You weren't expecting to have this type of workload put on your shoulders, especially this early in the season. And all of that kind of happened in the blink of an eye. And I think he did a nice job doing what he could to help this team win a football game.
And he was banged up during camp. He missed a lot of time in the offseason, in the training camp and leading up to the season. So, hopefully as he gets more reps, he'll get even better. Again, very few bright spots, if any, on this Cleveland Browns offense during the Steelers week. But he was one. So yeah, the 69-yard run that was huge at the time. So the thing is, we've seen different backs come in with this offensive line and this running scheme come in and have success. Whether it was Dearness Johnson and Kareem when he was here with Nick Chubb the last couple of years. So I think he has potential to be. A suitable starter. I just think Reem's going to get more playing time than people think.
Yep. So once again, the Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week is Jerome Ford. And that leads us to the Division Roundup. All right, so in the Division Roundup here, we'll start with, there was only 2 games. Everybody played each other. So Baltimore beats Cincinnati as Joe Burrow re-aggravates his calf injury. I was wrong with my pick on that, and both Kenny and Bone Man were right. And then Cleveland obviously loses to Pittsburgh. We were all wrong with that pick. And so our updated records for King of the North, which we will talk about later in the episode, I am at 3-2, Kenny's at 4-1, and Bone Man is at 4-1. Yes, it has happened. I'm in last place. And I will say this, Kenny, this feels really bad. I just don't understand how you were able to do this for an entire season last year.
Look, I think you scored this wrong because I think I'm 3-2 with you. So as much as I want to be in first place and want you to eat shit, I'm going to be the bigger man here.
What was your record last week?
Because I missed a game last week, so I think I'm also 3-2.
Nice. Oh, well, it doesn't. Now I share it with you, and it feels less bad. So I'm feeling good right now. I actually feel 10 times better. So it's a good day. Well, it's not a good day. Nick Chubb's still hurt, but it's not as bad as it once was.
But
All right.
But John Hughes was as big as he ever was.
Yeah, that's true. It's time for Around the NFL. Bone Man, Kenny, got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you think of good defenses, who do you think of?
Baltimore, Pittsburgh,
San Francisco.
Notice none of you guys.
Tampa Bay.
Notice none of you guys said the Saints.
No, I did not.
But the Saints have extended their streak of games allowing under 20 points to 10 games this week. That is the longest streak in franchise history, and they made Bryce Young look absolutely silly this week. They made him look like a first or like a rookie. So I mean,
Let's be honest. Bryce Young kind of looks silly.
well, that's true. But he did look like a rookie throughout that entire game.
Bryce Young actually reminds me, not in any way like a person, but watching him play football, the closest thing I can compare him to right now, and maybe this will change if he gets better, but is Johnny Manziel. He's so small. He's so small.
I just
back
cringe
there.
every time I hear that name. I watched the thing on Netflix with him. By the way, it's just so it just makes the Browns look even worse.
That was
But anyways, we were talking.
not a good moment in time.
Yeah, we were talking about Bryce Young, and speaking of Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick is questionable for Week 3 after he left the Monday Night Football game with an ankle injury. It's the dreaded high ankle sprain, and he has not practiced this week as of Wednesday. So you know what that means? Andy Dalton is in line to start, and the Red Rocket is back.
Look, I'll give that guy credit. Almost like a Chad Henne, just hanging in there, just soaking up every dollar, being a backup quarterback.
Oh, man. Remember when we couldn't stop Henne?
And being kind of, being kind of effective. You know, I mean, he doesn't lose every game. He's okay.
He just loses like 50% of them.
He just loses a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I probably won't pick them to win this week.
Yep. So that was it on Bryce Young. Speaking of top QBs in the draft dealing with injuries, Anthony Richardson remains in concussion protocol and is not practicing. This 1 week after we talked about, which us and like every other sports show in the history of sports shows, talked about him needing to get down and avoid hits in order to stay out of concussion protocol. Nope. He decided he wanted to take on more defenders, and he is in concussion protocol. So I got to say, I think he might have a very short career.
I literally said last week, I said Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud have the higher upside because they can play cerebral football from the pocket, and Anthony Richardson is just such an athlete that he just does whatever he wants because he can, and that is probably going to be his downfall. And
can't rely on that.
Here we are.
I tell people
it was great until he got hit in the head.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, when you're a freak athlete in college, it works because you're a freak athlete.
Yeah.
When you get to the NFL, every player in the NFL was the freak athlete for their team in college.
Yep.
So you just can't rely on that solely once you're in the NFL. In other QB news here, Justin Fields came out this week and said he is playing robotic and that he thinks coaching may have something to do with that. So is there a little bit of trouble in Chicago? I know, Kenny, you've said all along the only way Justin Fields can reach his full potential is if he gets out of Chicago.
Yeah, they're
Chicago.
They're a mess. They're a lot like.
Hey, I'm Nick. I'm from Chicago.
They're a lot like the Browns have been in terms of just front office is a disaster. Can't decide on a head coach that's worth a damn, and has made player personnel moves that don't make a lot of sense. So. Yeah, look, tough break. I like Justin Fields. I wish that he could have played for anybody else because I just think that he's never going to have success in Chicago. It's unfortunate.
It's a fair point. On the opposite end of QB situations and overall stability at the position, Patrick Mahomes restructured his contract this week. He will now be paid $210.6 million between 2023 and 2026. That is the most in history over a 4-year span. It could reach upwards of $218 million if incentives hit, but the $210.6 million is fully guaranteed. The sides also plan to revisit the deal again after the 2026 season, which effectively cuts the remaining years of the deal from 8 to 3. So he basically got a 3-year, $210.6 million fully guaranteed contract. And I know that this has been weighing heavy on Kenny's mind for some time. Maybe this is the time to talk about it. Maybe it's not. But Kenny, you got anything you want to say here?
We're going back to this. The quarterbacks need to stop.
Yeah, quarterbacks need to stop. That's Kenny's message.
These quarterbacks need to stop. Look, how much money is?
Do you want to save this conversation because you can get pretty deep into this?
How much money is enough money for the best player in the NFL? Because the last time I checked, Patrick Mahomes can't play this game by himself. So. You've eliminated the whole middle class of quarterbacks. We saw this with Baker, right? They didn't want to pay Baker $40 million a year because he wasn't maybe a $40 million a year quarterback, which is fair. But could Baker have been a $25 million a year quarterback?
Easy.
Sure. But we've eliminated that whole weight class of quarterback in the NFL to say you're either a journeyman,
you're up here or you're done.
You're either a journeyman backup or a rookie, and we'll deal with that because that'll be your rookie window. We can bring in a lot of talent around you, and if you're any good, we'll win. But if you're Patrick Mahomes, we're going to give you all the money and all the assets, and we can't really do anything else besides, you just leave you on your own. Like, at some point, these quarterbacks have to stop demanding these $40 and $50 million contracts because it's 40 and 50 today. It's going to be 60 3 years from now as the cap continues to increase. It's just, there's nothing like. The reason a lot of those Patriots teams were successful is because Tom Brady wasn't always the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
No.
Would you rather have a good team? Like, would Patrick Mahomes rather have Tyreek Hill right now than Isaiah Pacheco?
I would assume so.
Probably. So I just
imagine if he's still on that team. It'd be so scary.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't build sustainable teams and pay your quarterback $50 and $60 million a year. And like, at what point do you look at yourself? And I think Joe Burrow has like kind of said like, yeah, like I don't necessarily need to be the highest paid ever. Like, I'm going to get generational money regardless, and I want to save some from buddies like Jamar and T. Higgins. Like, let's get these guys signed to contracts because I can't throw the ball to myself. So that's my message: is the quarterbacks need to stop. We got to stop at some point.
Quarterbacks need to stop. We have that like written on our board in the studio, and it's just like underlined. Kenny, just quarterbacks need to stop.
It's just every quarterback that gets a contract is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL again.
Yeah.
Every time a new deal is signed, like we have to stop that, or else like no one's gonna be able to afford the rest of their team.
Agreed. But we're gonna move on, or else Kenny might be talking all night. So let's talk about a position besides quarterback. Saquon Barkley has been ruled out for Thursday Night Football this week with a high ankle sprain. In the midst of all the craziness regarding how the running back position is valued, two of the most prominent running backs in the league, him and Nick Chubb, have been sidelined with injuries. Both of them were on that Zoom meeting in the offseason where they talked about the state of the position. And frankly, this whole thing plays into why owners aren't paying them. And that's unfortunate, but these injuries are why. And now, so we're going to bring in Kareem Hunt. We're going to have Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford basically combined to be the Nick Chubb, and they're not going to be as good as him, but they'll be serviceable. And so what the owners are going to say is, see, didn't need a Nick Chubb. See, we didn't need a Saquon Barkley because somebody's going to back him up, and somebody's at least going to be serviceable. But I think it's such a disservice to these running backs because they change teams. And all the front office and all the coaches seem to see is the numbers at the end of the day. But these running backs change the way their team approaches the game in general.
Yeah, like you can't look at this Browns team and say like they got better by losing Nick Chubb.
No.
They could have signed anybody in the NFL and you would have been like they got better. Maybe Jonathan Taylor because he's younger. I don't know. But look, like, agreed. This plays right into their hands. It's one of the other things that upset me when Nick Chubb went down because I was really hoping that he would just have 1,800 yards this year and be a big reason why the Browns were successful. Just to really stick it to the man, and now that is off the table as well. So,
just so bad.
I do think that this has to come back the other way eventually because I think we've seen even this year already. Some of these good quarterbacks and teams that are good teams struggle out the gate. And I don't know if it's just because it's the beginning of the year and no one played in preseason, or if defensive coaches are getting smarter and better at protecting against elite quarterbacks. I think you saw, what was the game where this weekend where Brian Flores ended up, where they were just running players like down the middle of the field so that they couldn't throw the ball deep. And I think it was maybe the Bills game. But I just think defensive coordinators are getting more creative with their schemes. And at some point, this has to come back the other way, because if you have Nick Chubb on your roster and you can't throw the ball 30 yards down the field to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and everyone else, then if you have a running back that can get 6, 7, 8 yards of carry, then why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You got to run the ball again. Get back to the fundamentals, and I don't see.
I hope it swings back.
How this doesn't swing back at some point, because at some point you're just going to be guarding against air raid all the way across the NFL at all times.
Yep. Bone, thoughts on the running back position?
Yeah, I think it'll come back, and I still think it's just as important as it's ever been.
Hot take from Bone.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I mean, we agree. It has to come back because their running backs. I mean, you can't just eliminate running backs.
No, and as teams continue to drop more and more players into coverage, and you see more 3-man fronts instead of 4-man fronts, it has to come back into style.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's with a stable of running backs or a bell cow, I guess we'll see. But then, are you going to pay 3 guys to do the job of 1?
Yeah, which doesn't make sense to me either. But I digress. That's it for Around the NFL. Kenny, you want to do an interview?
I love doing interviews.
This week we have the Titans, so let's go ahead and let's bring on somebody from the Middle Tennessee Browns backers.
I love Nashville.
Who doesn't?
I don't know, but if you do, you're wrong. If you don't.
Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so in today's Browns backers interview series, we're going to be talking to the Middle Tennessee Browns backers. Craig Finch, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, thanks for being with us here. So first of all, I mean, obviously, like I said, you guys are the Middle Tennessee Browns backers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been established since 1988. I believe we've got over 200 active members currently in the club there. We meet every Sunday or every game day, so to speak. We meet at the Nashville Palace. It's a very, very nice venue. Accommodates, I think, over 400 or 500 people total. If we fill the place up there, we usually have, between 175, 200 members generally most Sundays. It's located close to Opry Mills Mall. So anyone that's in the Nashville area, that's a pretty big hot spot. Opryland, used to be there, used to be a theme park years ago, and they turned it into a mall. But we're a couple blocks from there. Like I said, great venue. My father-in-law is actually the president of the club. Great food, great drink specials, things of that. We always have 50-50 raffles, giveaway prizes, kids prizes. It's a real fun environment for sure.
So basically, if you're a Browns fan in Tennessee and in Nashville, it sounds like Nashville area specifically, you need to be here on game days, right? Nashville Palace.
Absolutely. It's the place to be for sure. And it's close to the airport, very easily accessible. I mean, you're probably 10 minutes, maybe at the most from the airport, probably about 15 minutes from downtown. So
nice.
A lot of cool things to check out in that area.
Yeah, for sure. And so with that being said, I mean, I know you mentioned some 50-50 raffles. I know that's kind of a way to raise money and those types of things. So are you guys involved with any community service, any charity work down there?
Yeah, I don't have the specifics on who we are connected to. I wish I would have had that information provided to me, but I do know we do donations. I believe the Humane Society is one of the ones we do. I know we do a food drive at the end of the year where we have, our members bring in canned goods and things of that nature as well. So there's definitely a lot of charitable activities taking place with us as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that's one of the things I think that gets overlooked sometimes about the Browns backers organizations is folks just think it's a bunch of Browns fans getting together to watch the game and hoot and holler.
Which it is.
And it is, but then there's also this component that's like very civic minded and trying to do, good things in the community. So I'm sure it's a little bit tough out there just because I'm sure that's Titans town, but but every little bit helps. So, quick question too, just around like your viewing location and some of the events that you do have set up. Sounds like you said there's around 200 or so members in the group. Do you get that pretty consistently, and do you get a lot of like guests that show up, people from out of town?
If the season doesn't go as well, of course, you do see a little bit of that viewership drop off, at some points. But generally, it's been pretty well packed there for the last couple of years, where the excitement level has been real high. And we've got a big, huge, I think it's 160-inch viewing, like a big projected type screen at the front. Also, a lot of different televisions around the rest of the bar. So, I mean, if someone's coming to check us out, there's no way you're going to miss the.
Nice. What's your closest? Do you have like hostile fans coming bother you, like Cincinnati fans or anybody that
we're dedicated? We're a dedicated viewing location. So there's another viewing location in the same kind of parking lot that shows all the games. So generally speaking, we really don't have opposing teams, or especially the team we're playing. We don't usually have a whole lot of those fans come in. So, I mean, it's primarily Browns only. I'm sure they let them come in. I remember years ago. Yeah, years ago, we'd have a few, like we played the Ravens or something. You'd have a few that wanted to come in and just, that was their thing, I guess. But generally, most of the time, it's mostly all Browns fans.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it, because then, like you said, you don't have any of that these other teams trying to come in and harass you. And we all know that everybody loves to harass Browns fans.
Right.
So no, with that, I mean, obviously a great viewing location that's dedicated to you guys. It sounds like you got a lot going on there. Are there any upcoming events that you're hosting or looking forward to, besides obviously just meeting every Sunday?
I know that my father-in-law met Bernie back at the president's meeting back a couple, 3 or so weeks ago. There's been discussions of at some point possibly trying to get him to come in and do a signing or something to that effect. We've had Kevin Mack before come in. Ernest Biner's been there, I believe. See, we usually, when we play the Titans, it's usually a massive, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 Browns fans will kind of inundate Nashville. The last time we played them here and beat them in that really kind of crazy game where we were down 28-3 or 28 to something, and we came back in the second half and won. I mean, all you could hear in the entire stadium was barking and Browns fans, hooping and hollering. So it was a really big, funny kind of turn of events with that one. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's something that's going to be at some point in the works. I don't know if it'll happen this season or not, but I do know that those conversations have been had, and that is something to being discussed.
That's awesome. I was actually at that game in Nashville last time it went off, so it was a really good time.
I don't think people understand how well Browns fans travel. There's Browns fans everywhere.
Absolutely.
See, here in Tennessee,
now, I know that.
Go ahead. They have a thing where they say "tighten up." Is kind of their catchphrase, if you will. Like, we're here, we go Brownies. And all you heard in the first half of that game was everyone just tighten up, And then by the end of the third quarter, the first fourth quarter, it was you didn't hear that at all anymore. So it was pretty fun.
Tighten down.
Right. So I know part of the Browns backers deal is you don't want to really drive viewers away from the location, but do you have maybe like a one time a year or special occasions where you have either a block of tickets to go to a game or some kind of tailgate activities or anything like that?
We have in the past, yeah. We've done, as far as proximity to us, we've had a game where the whole club went to Atlanta, kind of like chartered a bus and did that. Actually, the last time when they did that to the Atlanta trip was when my last son, I have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. So my wife and I didn't get to attend because we were in the hospital having our last child, but they do those every so often when there is a regional game. Like, we play the Colts every so often. I don't know if they're doing it this year. I think the Colts, is that in Cleveland? I can't recall. Pretty sure we play the Colts.
Off the top of my head,
yeah, I can't recall.
Yeah, I have to look at the schedule.
Yeah, and we definitely have done those type deals before, and it's of course, when you get 100 plus people typically or more, you can kind of get a big chunk of tickets and make something of it. So
Awesome.
Yeah, sure. And so, I mean, yeah, you guys are doing good things down there. The fact that you've got that many showing up week in and week out is phenomenal. I know some of these places and some of these chapters struggle to have that viewership kind of stay the whole time. Especially, just conveniences of people's homes. They just Kenny loves watching at home. That's where he watches all the time. But
my house being remodeled.
But yeah, his house is being remodeled, so he needs a place like Nashville Palace to go watch the game. But more on the football side of things here. So obviously, devastation this past week against the Steelers. So can you just kind of give us what your thoughts on the game were?
I mean, it was about as deflating as it could have been to me personally, because the opportunity was there for, a big step forward. In my opinion, where we were positioned with our divisional win against Cincinnati, with the divisional opponent against the Steelers and the Ravens coming up in a couple of weeks, it was just a really great opportunity to, take advantage of conference wins, divisional wins, and just stick it to the Steelers, obviously. I believe that we would have overcame the quick pick six that took place if you didn't have the earth-shattering blow of Nick Chubb going down in the fashion that he did. To be perfectly honest with you, I believe that there was a lot of an indictment there on the coach and the quarterback, because those are, in my opinion, the two guys that you look to when adversity hits. You want your quarterback to put it on their back. You want him to say, it's okay, we're going to get through it, we're going to go win this game. And you want your head coach to kind of keep everybody, locked in and refocused on what the task is at hand. Obviously, that kind of a loss had an impact on their mental state. I mean, I believe as a fan, he's my favorite player. I'm wearing his jersey right now. I have my fantasy team named after him. I mean, it was a substantially depressing blow to take. But at the end of the day, you still have to just turn the page and move forward. And I feel like we were so deflated that it was not going to, even when we had the lead at 22-19, I believe it was, I still didn't have that, like, we've got this feeling. I had the, what's coming next kind of feeling. But, you got to move forward. We got Titans this week, so I'm excited that they've signed Kareem Hunt. I believe that will immediately bring back into that locker room a little bit of energy and a spark plug, because he immediately has rapport with the players already there. Familiar with the offensive schemes. I don't think that it's an immediate plug and play, like he's not going to come in and start on that game, but I believe his role will quickly be what it once was, if not even more, with Chubb's absence.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And you talked about a few things there. First of all, the indictment on the coach and the quarterback. I think we both agree with you there. Especially in Chubb's stead the rest of the season. They're going to have to step up. Deshaun's going to have to be the $230 million quarterback that we brought him in to be. And Kevin Stefanski's going to have to take a huge, or Stefanik, as we like to call him on this program, because we don't respect him when he coaches the way he did this week. But he's going to have to step up and just, kind of galvanize this team and help them come together in the wake of that injury, because you're right. No, you can't, there's no way to replace a Nick Chubb. Nobody can replace a Nick Chubb. Sure, Kareem's going to come in and he's going to do what he can, but nobody can replace that. And you as the coach and you as the quarterback need to lead and get these guys in a good headspace to play every week and give them that person to look to. So,
right. Like, I don't want to say they quit or gave up, but I just feel like it was such a huge opportunity that they could have, pushed through. I guess my thing is, like, you want to see in that situation, your team is going to probably either A, quit, or B, get mad and turn that mad and that frustration into the fire that will push them to that next level. And I hope that after, they've had a few days to kind of process what happened, that will be the mentality that they have moving forward. As I heard Anthony Walker today said, the rest of this season is going to be dedicated to Nick Chubb. And I genuinely hope that is a message that will resonate through the organization, because that guy's given everything he can. I mean, that guy works, to the end of the day and then some. So you really want the players to maybe appreciate that this could have been something and still could be something special, but it's going to take everybody putting everything they can forward to make that happen. Because there is a little bit of a factor of there's some teams that are currently down that people didn't expect to be down. So when you've got that opportunity in front of you, you really have to take full advantage of it in the immediate sense.
Well, I think that's what's so doubly frustrating about this week's game is Pittsburgh's not a very good football team. So you can't kick yourself. When you have those opportunities to beat teams that you're clearly better than, and the defense played so well
and you doubled them up
during the entire game.
Yeah, you doubled them up. I mean, we had twice as many first downs, twice as many yards. They didn't take a snap within the 20-yard in the red zone. So when you look at those metrics, those analytics, I mean, you can't look at that and say anything other than that quarterback on that field. And I'm a guy who I had mixed feelings about Deshaun Watson on the initial side because, of course, all the personal aspects of things around. My wife can't stand the guy personally, but I also saw the bigger picture that this person, from a skill set standpoint, could arguably be the best quarterback we had. But you've got to take advantage of those moments. And I guess I would say, like, looking at the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Josh Allens, the certain, just insert, those guys. Given the ball 2.5 minutes to go in the game, you still got a timeout in your pocket. You want that guy to go take you and win that game. And that's not what happened. So, I mean, there's a guy that's on YouTube named Wyatt's World who said he believes he's walking around with a guilty conscience on his mind. He's not what he once was from a player relation standpoint. A lot of guys don't like him, and they probably don't mix words about that. And so that's affecting his psyche. And so, in my opinion, you've got to get that worked out. I mean, I grew up playing golf. A lot of golf is played in the 6 inches between your ears. So, in this case, it's a psych. You don't forget how to play football. You don't lose that ability and that skill set when you've done this your whole life. But you can lose sight of mental clarity and focus and being able to get your head in the right mindset. And I just don't know if he's there yet. And it's super uber frustrating because I was one of those guys that stuck my head out and said, hey, this could be great. This guy could do, this guy could take us to the promised land, all discretions aside. And I'm hoping that that's still the case. Truly, I do. I do. But
I feel like me and you are like kindred spirits because your exact scenario that you just described there is my life. My wife hates him too. I was like, I agree that the things that he's accused of are terrible. But like you said, I kind of saw, I took everything in and assessed everything instead of just hanging up on that. And now I'm kind of like, well, was it right? I don't know.
Well, I think what's really interesting there is sorry, go ahead.
I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. So there wasn't a Tennessee Titans team here when I was a child. I'm 44 years old. So I grew up a 49ers fan. And the reason that was they were on television, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, even transgress into Steve Young, Terrell Owens. So, I mean, they were a team that was just kind of like your New England Patriots or your Kansas City Chiefs now. They were showcased often. So that was a team that was on TV, and I had an uncle who rooted for them. When I met my wife, I went to a few Browns games at their club viewing area at the time, and the Browns fandom was so contagious, and so like the environment and the experience that the fans brought, because at that time we're talking like Jeff Garcia, if you remember the helmet, I can't recall the guy, Rudd, pulling the helmet off. I mean, those kind of experience, those kind of years in that period of time, but the fans were so diehard and so committed to their team that they loved being there, rooting them on, even if they weren't good. I found, man, I'm really going to be watching a lot of these guys play, and I kind of like these people, and that's how I became a fan. That being said, it's a matter of, just understanding that you do have to eventually turn that next page. Like, it's harder to be, where you are every year in that swimming in mediocrity versus actually getting it right. And with Deshaun Watson, we all kind of we've been there so long wanting that, that championship or wanting that, that success. that we were willing to say for the sake of football, because I told my wife, I said, look, at the end of the day, if you're a Browns fan, you want the Browns to win and you're rooting for the Browns, and that guy that's behind the helmet is that guy. And she was a Baker fan. She still is. I mean, my oldest son still likes Baker a lot. I didn't ever really have a problem with him. But, I mean, it's not my job to evaluate whether they think he can get you to that promised land. And that's what people in those positions do. So I just kind of looked at it like, hey, if I'm not going to stop rooting for the Browns, then I'm going to have to be on board with this and go with it. And it's going to be, you know, he's going to win and he's not, you know, but I mean, that's what you're hoping is going to happen, is that he gets over this hump and we take that next step.
Yeah, Craig, that's very well put. I mean, that's kind of where I was at as well. So
I got to tell you, that's probably the most interesting story about becoming a Browns fan I've ever heard, because at no point did you get to relish in any of the good of the Browns. A lot of us grew up, at least our parents, you know, told us tales of the times that the Browns were good. You came in shortly after Tim Couch got benched and Jeff Garcia was in town and decided this is a team that you can root for. I mean, what a story.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a shirt that says "I married into this." I don't wear it that often, but I was given that as a Christmas present once from my mother and father-in-law. And the idea is that, like, when they do get there, like when it does happen, because I'd like to believe, there's also a shirt that I have that I'm sure y'all have seen, when you just won before I die. You know, I've witnessed Super Bowl championships for the team that I loved as a child, so I know how that feels. And you know, when this does happen, when we get to that next place and we actually do it, then it will be all the better. Like, I mean, the 0-16 and the 1-15 season won't matter one single bit when you're holding that Super Bowl trophy. So, I mean, that's kind of the idea and principle, is that's why they, you know, fans are fanatics. I mean, we love our teams, we love our sports. And also, I guess, full disclosure, I grew up a Vanderbilt Commodore fan because I grew up about 10 minutes from the stadium, and my dad's a huge Vandy fan. So I watched a whole lot of not good football in my lifetime. So it wasn't that hard of an adjustment to make, because I root for Vandy no matter what. And they really can't beat hardly anyone half the time. So, you know, so I guess in that sense, I had a little bit of a kinship to the fans as far as that goes.
Yeah, no, great story there. I do want to take a look at this week's game, though, and kind of move us forward here just a little bit. Obviously, we're playing the Tennessee Titans. You know, it's our week 3 matchup, and you're there kind of right in their backyard. So can you give us a little insight as to what kind of their local sports commentators are saying about not only their team in this season, but this game specifically?
Honestly, I haven't heard a lot, just because I listen more to Browns radio on my phone. But I will tell you that from my assessment, I feel like they're probably looking at us and saying we're a great team to stop the run. They don't really have a formidable running attack now that their running back has gone down. We know Ford is potentially very, you know, he can fill this role fairly well, or at least he looked like he could on Monday night. But I feel like they're going to probably try to take away any opportunity to run the ball, which means, going back to our other comments, the onus will fall on Deshaun Watson. They do not have what is perceivably a very strong secondary or pass defense. So if there ever was an opportunity for him to so-called right the ship, that would be what they need to do. And I think Tennessee probably realizes that they're vulnerable on that side of the defense. So it's going to be kind of a matter of, can he go out there and go beat them? With our defense being as strong as it appears to be, I believe that we should be able to bottle up Derrick Henry. I think that he is kind of at the beginning stages of that. You know, when you see a running back lose a little bit of a step, I don't know that he is as dominant as he was a couple of years ago. I believe Tennessee has kind of overutilized his skills there for a while. Like, you know, they really ran that horse a lot. And of course, they have not, you know, gotten the best complement of offensive weaponry around him. You know, Tannehill is Tannehill. I mean, he's a starting quarterback, but he's at that bottom tier of starting quarterbacks, in my opinion. He probably falls somewhere in that 32 to 24 range, you know, as far as what he's able to bring to the table. DeAndre Hopkins, who I would have loved to seen us sign, hasn't done so much so far. Traylon Burks, also, second year, kind of unproven to a certain extent. I mean, but again, that could have more to do with who's throwing him the ball. And as far as their defensive front, I mean, I believe that they're going to be a solid, defensive opponent for us. But I do believe we have more weapons than they do, and I do believe we can exploit some of those matchups. I think Njoku could potentially have a little bit of a better game this week than he has shown so far. I would say that would about cover it. I mean, as far as what I feel like we should be able to dictate our own terms. I mean, if we keep them in check defensively, then I don't think we have to go out and score 31 points or something to win this game. I think we can, kind of get our stuff together offensively enough to, take care of business. But I don't think we have to go out there and get in a boat race with them, so to speak.
Has the quarterback chatter started there at this point, or does it still feel like this is Tannehill's team when you have Will Levis sitting there on the sidelines?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be tabled until the record dictates that it's not. I mean, they should not have won against the Chargers. I watched some of that game on Red Zone because we weren't playing until Monday night, and the Chargers, as they have done last year at times and how they've so far done this year, is they don't know how to get out of their own way. So, I mean, when you, score at a pretty good clip like they tend to do, you should not be in games with Tennessee that, they should have come in there and scored, 35 points on them because they are a passing offensive team. So I don't think that the quarterback conversation will, start chirping until, if say they find themselves 1-4, 1-5 or something like that. I don't know when their bye week is, but you've got the guy from Kentucky, Will Levis. You've also got Malik Willis there. So you've got a couple of young guys that may, be itching for the opportunity. And if your season becomes lost, I think that's when you make that call. I just don't know which one's, got a higher pecking order in their eyes.
And is there still a lot of confidence in the head coach there?
I think Vrabel has probably got himself enough credit built up in the organization that, they would need to have more than one bad season for him to be on the proverbial hot seat. Because, I mean, you don't usually, good organizations, and I'm not necessarily saying the Titans are a good organization, but good organizations don't make knee-jerk, decisions to can a guy if they have a bad season. Usually you'll get at least a couple of years. Now, if they were to, only win 2 or 3 games or something, if that were the case, because, I mean, their division is not particularly difficult, with the Houston and an Indianapolis in there, though Indianapolis is kind of a little better than I think maybe people thought. If you win 2 or 3 games, who knows, all bets may be off. But as long as he shows that he's, still got control of everyone and running things like he should, I think the organization would probably, give him another year or 2 at least. Because you got these young quarterbacks. I mean, you just drafted Will Levis. If you believe you made the right call as a GM, I don't know that you want to make that kind of a change. Usually when you make something like that, I feel like that's kind of like an off-season para-coach, para-quarterback initially. And they're kind of in that limbo state where they can't really do that if you're still sitting there with the veteran.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
One final thing. Do you know why Will Levis and his girlfriend broke up?
I do recall seeing her on TikTok a bunch there right around the draft time, so I don't know the details there, but she did get kind of TikTok famous there for about a month.
Yeah.
Oh, so with Cam Akers is being traded, it looks like.
Oh, who's you going to?
I don't know. It popped up on my phone and then just said Cam Akers being traded.
Breaking news from Craig Finch. Cam Akers has been traded to where we don't know. He's a half reporter.
I would guess the Raiders, but
yeah.
I don't have confirmation on that yet. So Mike can tell you. Let's see. Cam Akers traded to the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow. That's interesting.
Well, because they wouldn't sign Dalvin Cook in the offseason, so
yeah,
they needed a new one.
Realized they needed a running back still.
I didn't expect
That's why they're 0-2.
Yeah.
Usually you want to trade out of the conference if you can, but I guess they may not feel like he's a significant liability for them. So, I mean, wouldn't come back to hurt him, I guess.
I mean, he's been sitting the bench there. So
right. Exactly.
But no, so with you talked about their team versus our team, what they have going for them or don't, and same with the Browns. So with that, I mean, what do you think is going to happen this week? Do you have a prediction, a score prediction,
Sure.
or even just kind of how you think the game's going to go?
I believe that if we can get a Watson that is closer to what we all hope him to be, I mean, it could get to that, like, say, 27-13, 27-10 kind of a range. If we get a Watson closer to what we've seen so far, it could be more of a dogfight, which I hope it's not. I mean, I really would love to see one of those right the ship kind of a games. I mean, you're going to start to hear that chatter really pretty quickly grow if he continues to play at this level, where he's not getting it done. So in this case, it's kind of a perfect opportunity for him to hopefully clear some of that out. I mean, I'd love to see a 300-yard game, for example, couple 2-3 touchdowns, something like that. Maybe a couple touchdowns in the air and one on the ground. I mean, there's another one of those opportunities right in front of you, because if you lose this game, gosh forbid, you're now 1-2, and then you're you're playing the Ravens. The wheels could come off of this fairly quickly. And I think that's really unfair because of all the circumstances here with Chubb and all that. But if you win this game and you do so in a decent fashion, everything goes kind of to a reset. You go back to okay, we're playing the Ravens next week. We could be, 2-1 in the division and 3-1 in the conference. There's a lot there in this first 4 or 5 games. So yeah, I would say 27. I feel so good about the defense. I say 27-10, best case scenario, and could be more like 17-13 if it. I still feel like we find a way to win this game, in my opinion.
I like that. I honestly, I mean, we'll get into our predictions later on in our podcast, but I like where your head's at, and I hope that you're right. I hope that you're right.
Yeah, and I'll say, Craig, we appreciate the time today, especially coming off a really tough loss, and not so much even a loss, but the loss of Nick Chubb. I mean, I think your words were very succinct, very heartfelt. I think a lot of Cleveland is feeling the same way right now. So just appreciate the way you were able to kind of phrase that and bring that all together, especially being boots on the ground here, giving us some insight into the Titans. I would say this was a very, very insightful conversation. I would say come back and join us anytime. Nashville's kind of our second home. We love it down there.
Love Nashville.
It's one of our favorite places to go and play golf and eat and hang out. So hopefully we'll cross paths again, but we really appreciate the time with you today.
Hey, I certainly appreciate it. Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime you'd like. So
thanks a lot, Craig. We appreciate it.
We're the Middle Tennessee Browns backers, and you're listening to Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns.
What a good interview. Craig was pretty insightful there.
Craig sounds like he's someone that talks football on the reg.
Yeah, like I wonder if he has a podcast.
His own podcast.
Yeah, he should come on our podcast. Maybe we could bring him on. He could be our correspondent, our field correspondent.
I like that. Good. Well done, Craig. Well done.
Good job, Craig.
No, that's why I always like talking to Browns backers. I just think that the Browns backers pay attention at a different level. If you sit and listen to like local radio and the guys that call in and they're like, "Well, Nick Chubb sucks," like get out of here.
Not to bash on some of our local radio guys, but even some of our local radio guys don't know as much as Craig Finch.
True. Agreed.
So,
Craig Finch is the GOAT.
But that'll take us to the Burning River Sportscast Hot Take Headline.
Oh, yeah.
All right, don't forget to call and leave your hot takes on the Hot Take Hotline. You think Craig Finch is better than anybody in Cleveland Sports Radio?
Craig Finch is better than anyone in Cleveland Sports Radio.
Remember, these are hot takes.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. What? Hot takes. What? Hot takes. 330-227-8080.
330-227-8080.
330-227-8080. Call now. Operators are not standing by. Just an answering machine.
Just an answering machine.
But we'll put your hot takes on the air.
If they're hot enough.
All right, Kenny, you know what time it is.
It is time.
It's time to take a quick revenue break, and then we'll get back here and talk to Frank the Tank Stams and preview the Week 3 game against the Tennessee Titans.
Sensual.
Towpath Distillery. Towpath Distillery, an award-winning craft distillery located in Akron, Ohio. Towpath Distillery focuses on high-quality spirits carefully made in small batches. Towpath's lineup includes an ultra-smooth, award-winning premium vodka, a small batch silver rum made from the highest grade molasses, an American craft gin made with 9 botanicals, and a blended straight bourbon made from corn and rye. Towpath Distillery, now available locally and in 46 states. Visit towpath-distillery.com to place your order online or find an OHLQ retailer near you. Towpath Distillery, handcrafted, award-winning, small batch, local, and family-owned. All Cleveland Coffee. All Cleveland Coffee is a coffee company that launched earlier this year in Cleveland, as the name would suggest. Founded by Browns legend and Hall of Famer Joe Thomas and 6-time heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC, Stipe Miocic, along with a team of several other brilliant Clevelanders. All Cleveland Coffee is on a mission to give 1 million meals back to the community through an official partnership with the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. How will they do this, you ask? With every bag purchased, 3 meals get donated to the food bank. It's such an awesome idea. A bunch of great individuals are involved, and the result of this is the best coffee in Cleveland, bar none. It comes in 3 roasts, light, medium, and dark, which the dark is what Joe Thomas drinks every morning with his coffee, and that's what I prefer as well. Kenny, what do you like?
I'm a medium roast guy.
He's a medium roast guy. All Cleveland Coffee. Visit all-cleveland.com today to order your coffee and donate a few meals in the process. All Cleveland Coffee. Ethically sourced, premium roasted, and 3 meals donated for every bag purchased. So before we get into the Week 3 preview, we are going to talk to another Cleveland Browns alum that will be going on the Browns fan cruise with us.
Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so our next guest is a hometown hero in Northeast Ohio. He played high school football locally before playing 4 years at one of the biggest college football programs in the nation. After being drafted to the NFL and having an initial stint out west, he made his way to the Cleveland Browns in 1992 and played for Cleveland from 92 to 95. Still resides in the area and continues to make an impact in his community to this day. So without further delay, boys, let's welcome Frank Stams. Frank.
Yeah. Frank the Tank's in the house.
How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing well, Ronnie, Kenny. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely.
No problem. So before we get to some of the questions that we have for you, I do want to talk about something here. You're going to be on the Browns fan cruise in March of 2024. That is confirmed. Stamp, signed, sealed, delivered, whatever you want to say about it. Right. You will be on the cruise.
I never missed a kickoff in my life. And let me tell you something. That's one kickoff I will not miss.
Yeah. And so, we will be on the cruise as well. We'll be emceeing most of the events on the cruise. And we're really looking forward to sharing that fan cruise with you. So can you just tell our listeners a little bit about the fan cruise here?
Well, first of all, when the Browns invited me to go on a cruise, it was for my wife and I, it was a dream come true because I have never been on a cruise before. And I'm looking forward to this as much as anybody. And, then when I start hearing about the cruise, it's a 5-day cruise, cruising the Caribbean, leaving out of Miami, stopping in Nassau, the Bahamas, spending a day there, traveling, spending a couple of days at sea, and then porting in Jamaica as well, spending a day there, and then coming back to Miami. And let me tell you something. Browns Nation, this is going to be the most fun you can legally have in international waters.
Well, I mean, that sums it up pretty well. I mean, I was looking forward to it. Now I just am ecstatic.
Now I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I
wish we were leaving tomorrow.
We're rocking out.
So we will come back to the Browns fan cruise here towards the end of the interview, but right now we want to talk a little bit more about you. I know you've kind of got a pretty interesting story, especially here in Northeast Ohio. Hometown kid, right? So lifelong resident of Cuyahoga Falls, went to St. V. So tell us a little bit about that.
My dad went to St. V. People ask me, I grew up in Cuyahoga Falls. They said, well, why didn't you go to Cuyahoga Falls High School? I said, listen, there was no decision-making process for me as far as where. My dad was raised by the nuns in grade school at St. V. and then went to high school. So it was a no-brainer. I was going to St. V. Tremendous amount of, loyalty there. I played for a great coach, John Sistone. We had a lot of success. We won a couple of state championships while I was there, my sophomore and junior year. And then,
nice.
I was lucky enough to get noticed. Notre Dame came calling, took some visits across the country. But, how do you not go to Notre Dame? My high school was the Fighting Irish, right?
Right.
And, plus my dad, a big influence in my life. He grew up in the late 40s. Frank Leahy was a coach. I think it was 4 undefeated seasons that he had there. So, they never told me where to go, but, it was a great fit for me. And, I'm lucky enough to win the national championship in my 5th year there. Lou Holtz came in the last 3, turned it around. We go undefeated. And interesting, I was projected to go between rounds 3 and 5 by the all-knowing and all-wise Oz Mel Kiper. And I jumped up into the second round with the 45th pick. And a couple of reasons for that. One, the Rams had an ungodly number of draft choices in the first 3 rounds because the year before they just traded Eric Dickerson to the Colts. And plus, we went out to my senior year at Notre Dame. We went out to Southern Cal. We were 1 in the nation. They were 2. And I had a good game. And in the stands was John Robinson, the head coach of the Rams, and John Shaw, who was the president of the Rams. And they ultimately told me that they loved the way that I competed on the football field. And that's why they chose me in the early rounds. So, it was, St. V to Notre Dame, and then initially to the Rams breaking into the NFL.
So, can we take a real quick step back there? So, because when you were at St. V's, you actually played a different side of the ball, didn't you?
Well, at St. V, we were I shouldn't say we were so small, but the smaller schools, you play just about everything. In fact, there were a couple of games I don't think I ever came off the field. I was returning punts. I was running the ball on offense. I was playing linebacker on defense. And, listen, if they were paying us back then, I would ask for a raise every week. And, I was running the ball. And I initially, thank you for remembering, I went to Notre Dame as a fullback. And it wasn't until, my Holtz's first spring, that would have been the spring of 1986, that I turned a bad break into a good one. I broke my leg my first week of spring practice with Lou Holtz. And to be honest with you, probably the writing was on the wall. I was never going to be, he ran the veer option, and I was an I formation fullback at best. So when I broke my leg, it took me from a 5 flat to a 5.5, and there's no way I was playing that. So the next year, you and your listeners will like this. There was a young linebacker coach on the staff, Barry Alvarez. When Holtz said, "I'm done with Stams, who wants him?" Alvarez said, "I'll take the rum-dum." And so that's when I moved to defense. And I thrived under Barry Alvarez. Just loved his coaching style. Just was great. I always thought that he's the kind of coach that should coach with a scotch in one hand and a cigarette in the other. And just cool as the other side of the pillow, as the saying goes. And so the defense played like.
Yeah, so he put you in, and he realized pretty quick. He's like, "This guy's a dog."
Yeah, right. It took me a year to convince him that I wasn't. But we we have a great relationship to this day. I've been up there a couple of times to Wisconsin, and it's no coincidence that he's had tremendous success going up there.
One of the things I find so fascinating about your career is some of the folks that you've had the chance to work with. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but there's a large contingent of folks that have played college football, but not very many of them got to play for Lou Holtz. Can you talk about just what that was like?
Oh my God! I listen. I should get all the therapy sessions that and get you the transcripts. I'm still dealing with that today. I'll tell you. Listen, here's the thing about Lou Holtz: tough as nails. Grew up with nothing in Follinsby, West Virginia. And you talk about the great American success story, a guy that worked his ass off his whole life. And when I say he was tough, that's the ultimate compliment because, that's what you have to be, in my opinion, to, play football and to be successful. That's one of the, I think, 3 necessary ingredients. And he was that. He was demanding. But you know what? Why we respected him is because every day he was the same guy. Every day we knew what to expect from him. Every day he worked as hard, if not harder, than we did. So how do you not respect that? You can have your own personal opinions. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going out and having a beer with him. But you as a young man looking for an identity, and you're absent of the family there, the football team becomes your family. And that, the father figure there is the head coach. So every day you know what to expect. You rely on that, and you can thrive in that environment if you don't let it drive you crazy. Now, some guys it will, that kind of demanding, highly critical environment. Only as good as your last play can really, play havoc with you. But you know what? I grew up in Northeast Ohio, tough football. I knew that football. I knew that animal coming to Notre Dame in Lou Holtz. And, I wanted to prove him wrong. And because, he was always, what are you going to show me? And so, I wasn't the guy that always needed to win, but I was the guy that never wanted to lose. So I didn't want to lose my position on the team. And, ultimately, he had the right chemistry with a lot of players, and we win,
Yeah. Sounds like it.
So you went from St. V to Notre Dame, drafted by the Rams in '89, and then fast forward a couple years here, and you ended up heading over to Cleveland. So tell us a little bit about your time with Cleveland.
Well, it was, listen, for a kid growing up in Northeast Ohio, you kidding me? When I got traded to the Browns, I called my dad and I said, hey, I got good news and bad news. And he says, well, give me the good news first. And I said, well, I got traded to the Browns. He said, well, what the hell possibly could be the bad news? And, he was actually in Las Vegas at the time with my car. And when I got traded, because they came out, my parents came out for a home and home preseason game. And they were going to Vegas between the games. I was getting a ride to work. I said, well, the bad news is take my car and keep going. And son of a gun, he did. He drove my car back to Cleveland. True story. So I arrive in Cleveland and, Saban, Belichick's the coach. Saban is the defensive coordinator. And Nick recruited me out of high school when I was at St. V. He was at Michigan State, and I knew him. And I'm playing with guys. Clay Matthews was on that team. Bernie was on the team. I mean, Michael Dean was on the team. Had a lot of talent on that team. And Bill's challenge was to put it all together. And as you guys know, and Browns fans from that period know, it was a challenge. It was a challenge because Bill was coming in, and he was a Parcells disciple, right? And Parcells was the kind of guy, last guy standing in training camp makes the team. Well, he inherited a culture from Bud Carson. And from what Clay Matthews was telling me, Bud Carson was the ultimate players coach. If it was raining too hard, Bud Carson would say, let's just stay in and watch film. So, a team over time gets a little soft in that environment. And I can attest to that because when I was with the Rams, we came and played Cleveland in the stadium and we beat them. And I'll be honest with you, that was not a physical football team that we played. And so, Bill's got to change that culture, and that was really hard. And he's changing the defense, and he's changing the offense. And you guys know what was going on there. I mean, it was just short of chaos. And but despite that, in '94. We, up until a couple of years ago when they won the playoff game in Pittsburgh, the 94 team was the last team to win a playoff game.
Yep.
Hell, I'm watching the Eagles in the preseason. They're playing the preseason at Philadelphia, and they showed a stat across the bottom of the screen. It said, the last time Cleveland won in Philadelphia was in 1994. And I said, dang, I remember that game. I had an interception in that game. So
I was there.
So that was, it's been a long, long time for Browns fans, for that, playoff road to come back. But I'm confident that Coach Stefanski and the talent that he's got on that team, things are going to happen this year for him.
So speaking of a couple of those names again, so you mentioned Saban.
Well, first of all, those names are insane to even think about the fact that we had them in Cleveland at the same time.
Saban, Belichick. I think Schwartz was there. Was that his first go around?
Yeah,
was
Schwartz
around that
was
same
there,
time?
Sure. Yeah, I saw Schwartz not too
Frank
long ago.
Stams.
Yeah, Frank Stams was there.
Do you have any
Kirk
great?
Ferentz, he's still the Iowa coach. He's there.
Do you have a favorite Bill Belichick story from your time there?
Bill, here's a humanizing. Here's a humanizing story of Bill Belichick. And listen, the guy eats, breathes, sleeps, and does everything else football. I mean, he just that's his essence. It's his being. But he's got a human side. And I remember one day I walked into early to we team meetings at 8 or 9 o'clock depending on the day. And I walk in and he's wearing, of all things, not a hoodie, not a torn shirt that he was 99% of the times he's wearing, but he's wearing a blazer, a jacket, a sport coat. And I look, and it was a nice sport coat, and I was impressed. And I said to, not that I have any fashion plate myself, but so I said to him, I said, yeah, coach, nice. That's a nice looking jacket. And he just kind of, grunted at me and smiled. And that was on a Wednesday. And then Saturday morning, when we were getting ready to take off or play the game, as I walked in, he hands me a note, and it's the name and number of his tailor and the guy that sells him the jackets. And I said, son of a gun, of all the things he had to worry about, he had the presence of mind or the memory or the, I guess I just say the concern to share that with me. And I thought, wow, he loved his players. And he was like Holtz in a lot of ways, and Saban was from the same mold. They didn't expect anything from their players that they didn't expect from themselves first. There was a number of times I'd be leaving the facility 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I'd grab some game tape to watch at home. And I remember a couple of times going in the linebacker room, and he's there pitch black, watching film on the bicycle, and just like pouring sweat out of him. And because he was a triathlete, he ran triathlons, and I'm not saying he was training, but he just everything he did, he worked hard at it. And, and I guess that's, those two stories, probably, when I look back at my time there to think what kind of guy Belichick was, he's a pretty good guy. He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, that's really special.
And so, kind of in that same vein, with the people who were there at the time, you were there when he who shall not be named moved the Browns out of town in the wee hours of the night. So I know that lives on in infamy here in Cleveland and always will. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe give us some insight into those dark times and what it was like around the locker room.
I'd be happy to. So that, of course, that's the 95 season. So I start that season with the Panthers, make it to the last cuts. They cut me. I'd like to say, I want to make an excuse here for myself. I was coming off a knee surgery. I was really kind of plagued by injuries my whole career. So they cut me, couldn't get healthy. My agent gets me a tryout with Kansas City. So go out there. Schottenheimer's the head coach out there. Great locker room. Montana's the quarterback. Marcus Allen's the running back. Some other great players out there. I was like, wow, this is great. So I last there. I, as Leroy Hoyd would like to say, I fooled him out there for about 6-7 weeks, picked up a paycheck. And then my agent calls. And here's how I like to say it. Because, the Browns went with Caldwell and another guy, Dixon, at young linebackers. And they didn't pick up – I was a free agent. So they didn't want to sign me as a free agent, but Carolina did. Bill Polian was down there with Dom Capers. And the Kansas City releases me, says, hey, listen, we got to make some rosters. We got to make a roster spot. We got to waive you. Will you hang around a little bit? I said, listen, are you going to pay me? And they said, no. I said, then I'm out of here. My agent calls me and says, and I like to say that the Browns realized their mistake. So they said, they want to re-sign me because they weren't happy with the way things were. I said, hey, listen, I'll be there. Give me a couple of days. I'll be there. So I stop in Toledo. Actually, I stop in Chicago with a buddy of mine who's from Toledo. I get up, I spend the night. I get up in the morning. He gets a call from his mom. She's living in Toledo. She said there was a story in the Blade that the Browns were going to move. And I told my buddy, I said, listen, of the 28 or 30 teams in the NFL at the time, the Browns would be the last team to move. So I drove into Cleveland. We had a team meeting the next morning. Who walks through the door first? The person the name not to be spoken. He walks in the door. Belichick's following him. He announces the move. And after that, all hell broke loose. I mean, it was just bedlam. It was CYA. And nobody knew what their future was going to be like. And I remember that from that point on going forward, because it was such a bad taste in the community in the Northeast Ohio's mouth, you saw the advertising start diminish weekly in the stadium to the point where at the end of the season, the frickin' Marlboro Man was gone. The Marlboro Man. The Marlboro Man, bro, I don't know if you guys are old enough for that, but the Marlboro Man, that's like frickin' the Washington Monument and DC. He was, and he's gone. And it was so eerie playing in a dark stadium like that with no advertising. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. And so, it's a crazy story and like we said, just a terrible, terrible time for, I think, just about everybody involved here in Cleveland, fans, players, coaches, you name it. But, you've seen some stuff in the NFL, I would say. Kind of with that and everything that you've been around and everything you've experienced. Do you have any advice for some of the younger players, especially for the Cleveland Browns, as they start their careers?
So, these players are so much more mature and so more focused on, what's at stake. Well, maybe that's because there's more at stake today. And I'm certainly talking about the dollars. And you want to they're more in tune with prolonging the career. It was great. I wanted to play it as long as I could, but the focus, so there's, when I say, what could I tell these guys are all dialed in, with that aspect, being a professional. I think what you want to try to be is as much of a professional as possible, because, as you guys know, they're laying out a lot of money for these guys and they want to see a return on it. I guess, also, the greatest thing about, I love the pro game versus the college game. And I'll tell you this quick story. And this is what I could tell the guys I think most of them know it. In college football, they teach you to step with the right foot. In pro football, they teach you how to make the play. It's all about It's all about being productive. And I learned that. That's why I love the pro game, because it was just a football game after that. It was just going out and making plays. It wasn't worried about, your position coach, worried about getting fired and all that. They didn't have that attitude in the pros. It was going out and making plays. So I wish I would have been zeroed in more of that is believing, because, a lot of the game is played on instincts. And believe your instincts and go for it. Try to make more plays. I look back in my career, there's a number of plays that if I would have just believed in what I saw, that I would have made those plays. There would have been a number of sacks, big play sacks, that I would have made just because I was a split second late. And really, that's the difference in the game, is those split seconds that make a difference. And some guys, you see that especially at quarterback, the ones that can't make the adjustment from college to pro, the split seconds. I was lucky enough that I could do that for a period of time. So I guess to answer your question, it's believe what you see and just go out there and have fun. Play the game like you're 6 and 7 years old again.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I've never played at that level because I'm me. But I mean, it sounds like great advice. All these guys are there for a reason, so just trust what got you there in the first place, and go out there and play.
Yeah, no, fascinating.
I would have said it like that.
I always get in trouble because Ronnie wants to move this thing forward, and I want to stop and chit chat. I've heard you tell this story again, and I don't know previously, but I don't know if all of our viewers have heard this story. But can you speak to just how you ended up in Cleveland from the Rams in the first place?
Oh, are you going to talk about the trade? You're talking about the reporter. You're talking about the reporter that came down the Rams locker room. So I fast forward. I fast forward a little through that, but okay, classic, right? So I told you I was hurt. My parents come out to the game. I'm dressing but not playing, so after the game, I see him outside. I toss him the keys, and then they take off with the car. I go down in the locker room, and this reporter comes up to me and starts asking me questions, like real crazy questions, like, how's your state of mind? And, asking me questions about my injury and all that. And I said, buddy, you got the right guy? He says, I got the right guy. So I go home, and my agent calls me and says, what's going on with you? The Browns, I said, I'm hurt. I said, I'm dressing, but I'm not playing. He said, the Browns want to do a deal for you. I said, do the deal. And because the Rams ended up moving like 2-3 years later. People out there, they don't come and boo you and throw batteries at you and snowballs. They just don't come. They go to the beach. They go to the mountains. They just ignore you.
Yeah.
So I said, man, are you kidding me? I go back to the Browns and be lucky enough to play from my hometown. So I go to practice the next day. Here comes Chuck Knox. And he says, Stams, we're going to do you a favor. And I said, oh, yeah, what's that? Because he and I really didn't see eye to eye. He said, we're sending you back to Cleveland. And he knew that was what would make me happy, because he's a Western Pennsylvania guy himself. And I said, gee, coach, I'm sorry things didn't work out here, but I think I turned around and skipped into the locker room. I was so happy. So I get on the plane. They fly, that same day, they fly me into Cleveland. And I'm in the weight room working out. And here comes Belichick. He says, Frank, glad to have you here in Cleveland. I said, Coach, are you kidding me? I grew up down the street here. This is awesome. And he said, yeah. He said, you recognize that guy over there? He points to another guy in the weight room, non-player, part of the administration personnel. He calls him over. I said, no, coach, I don't know him from Adam. He calls him over. He starts asking me the same questions the reporter did 3 nights prior in the locker room. And I said, son of a gun, it's the same guy. He snuck a scout out there to do their due diligence on me before they traded for me. And I said, wow, that's a guy who does his homework. So, and that's when I called my, and probably wondering, prior to getting on the plane from LA to Cleveland, I had to find my father and said, hey, listen, I got good news and bad news. And that's when I laid it on him. You got to drive the car all the way back. And he did.
Yeah, it sounds like the NFL was like the Wild West back then. Like people were just doing crazy stuff.
It's just got to be one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Oh, like, can you imagine somebody in the NFL doing that today?
Right. Yeah. Oh, there's all kinds of, and I came in during a time, they just passed the drug policy, and I'm coming in on the tail end of that. And I remember the older guys talking about, the guys that, were soft and they could tell a huge difference. And I'd be in locker rooms. We went to New Orleans one time and we played, and I'm in the training room waiting. My Achilles were killing me, and I need they were giving us Darvocet at the time. So I'm waiting for the trainer and the doc to come in so they could prescribe Darvocet for me. And I'm the only one in there, but there's one other item in there, and it's the black bag where they keep all the medicine. And the black bag is completely open. And I see veteran after veteran after veteran come in and grab medication out of the black bag. And after that went on for about 15, 20 minutes. And then the doctor came in and closed the black bag. And I said, oh, I get what's going on here. These guys, what the doc doesn't know, he's not responsible for it. They were self-prescribing, but you had to be like 4 or 5 years into the league where they would trust you. They weren't doing that for a rookie. I wasn't tuned into that. Yeah.
Wow.
Man. That's just wild.
Yeah, no, that's why this is why the NFL, the Browns cruise is going to be so much fun, because I'm going to tell these stories and more. And I know the other guys that, like Hanford and, Metcalf, it's just going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we know now Frank Stams doesn't hold back. So, but no, I mean, the last question I had for your time in Cleveland here, though, was, obviously spending time with the franchise. It's more than just playing football. You kind of become a family. You grow close with your teammates, your community. Is there a favorite off-field memory that you have from your time in Cleveland?
When I first got there, Bernie, kind of took me under his wing. Why? I don't know. I think, we shared some experience, not just on the field, being, both Northeast Ohio, Miami, Notre Dame, bit of a rivalry. But we shared some experience too, that we knew some same people. And he kind of took me under his wing, and I'll never forget him being so nice to me. He invited me out. He would take the offensive lineman out to dinner, and he invited me out with him to Johnny's up in Cleveland there, and a wonderful restaurant, and just hung out with those guys all night long. And I think, that I'm speaking to, the friendship and the chemistry that, he was fostering. And that's a big part, that's to me, championship teams, the chemistry's there. I mean, I saw that when I played against the San Francisco 49ers in Montana, and Roger Craig, Rathman, Taylor, and, the other guy on this, Rice. Those guys, we played against them over in Japan one year, and I was watching those guys, interact, and that's So getting back to the Browns, Bernie taking me out to dinner, I'll never forget that, and that was, that made me feel good about being part of a team that, really I didn't have any friends.
Yeah. And no, I mean, that's awesome. And I would love to sit here and talk Brown stories with you. This, and, until we have no time left. But fortunately, we'll be following up with more interviews with you on the fan cruise, actually. So we'll save some of these. But you did have such an amazing and interesting career. But I do know for most guys, they get sort of this whole second life after football. So can you tell us a couple things, what you're up to today, if you're still involved with the game at all, and kind of any charities or anything like that you're involved with?
Well, thank you for asking. It's important to me and, to give back to the community. And the main way I do that is through the Cleveland Browns Foundation. They have a number of charity. I mean, they're a charitable organization themselves, and we get involved through them, Browns Alumni get involved with the number of charities that they sponsor and contribute to. One of them happens to be the Adaptive Football League, where we're working and playing alongside men and women that have challenges physically and emotionally. And you want to learn, you want to come away a better person, get involved in that. And then I up until recently I ran the NFL alumni club here in Cleveland. And we did a lot of great work. All the guys, the 70-some guys that were involved, and a lot of these guys are going on the cruise, like Greg Pruitt and Hanford Dixon, got involved, and we raised over $100,000 in 3 years for Special Olympics Ohio.
Nice. So that's incredible.
It's really good stuff. I'm a councilman. I enjoy getting into I look at it as the arena. I really don't. I'm not a Republican or Democrat. People love this. I get on their doorstep. I said I leave my party affiliation off my leave behind, and they want to know why. And I said because when I was in the locker room and we're trying to win games, there were no Democrats or Republicans, and people say, "Yeah, we love that." so I'm a councilman here in town, and
Chicago Falls. That's where I live.
Yeah, Chicago Falls. Yeah, I grew up in Chicago Falls, so it's special to me. Married to a beautiful wife, Mary. Been married close to 25 years now. Two great kids. So, I'm really grateful. Grateful for what I have. I'm really grateful for what I have. So, thank you for asking.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I do know one other thing that you're up to today as well is you have your own podcast, I believe, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. In the Dog Pound. Yeah, in the Dog Pound. We do it with Metcalf, Leroy Horde, Hanford Dixon, and Mike Tomzek. We just kicked off our second season. And, in the Dog Pound, where you probably find your sportscast, Burning River Sportscast. It's catching, I think, some momentum. So, we love it. We just get in there and yuck it up. We'd love to have you guys on, and maybe vice versa. Yeah,
for sure. And there's nothing better than just talking Browns, right?
It's the best, right?
With the season about to start, there'll be a lot to talk about.
Yep.
Real quick follow up too. You mentioned kind of in the arena, which I love. Just like going back to the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena. What's the harder arena now that you've been involved in local politics and in the NFL?
Oh, wow. Are you kidding me? The politics are way harder. I mean, at least most of the time in football, you see them coming. There's a line of scrimmage, in politics. I mean, they're coming from all angles. I tell people this all the time. What I miss most about football is its honesty. And because, in football, those assistant coaches and head coaches and players, they didn't give a crap about your feelings. They were going to tell you exactly how you feel. And they didn't hide things. But the beauty of that is that you knew exactly where you stood. So you were either going to get better faster or, you were going to fail. And it was instantaneous. I mean, we'd get criticism. This is a hard part for players when they adjust going into the afterlife. is that immediate feedback. Because, we'd get it from our assistant coaches. We'd get it in the meeting room from films. So you were constantly being evaluated. A lot of times you're out there, you're not getting that instant evaluation all the time. So it's hard. You've got to have a strong belief in who you are and the conviction in which you do it. So to succeed, rather than people just driving you all the time to succeed. So, I guess, I forget your question now because I get off on these tangents and I go.
Harder arena, football or politics?
Oh, yeah, politics by far. By far.
Yeah. So, again, I would love to – go ahead.
No, I was going to say, nobody in politics. No, the whole thing in football, well, maybe the whole thing in football is being accountable. And in politics, nobody wants to be accountable.
I love that.
Yeah. So again, I would love to sit here and tell stories all day. This has been phenomenal so far. But I am going to bring this back to the time that we get to share on the open ocean in March of 2024 and a couple of amazing stops along the way. So let's talk about some of the things that everyone should look forward to. First of all, what event or activity during the entire fan cruise are you looking forward to most yourself?
Well, what I'm looking forward to most is the time on the ship. We've got a couple of days at sea where, there's going to be, it's just us and the people coming on to enjoy the experience, the players and the fans and the Browns fans and Browns Nation. And those activities that they have planned on board, whether it's a competition, whether maybe it's trivia, whatever, maybe it's, storytelling. I'm looking forward to that the most. Certainly, looking forward to getting out, maybe, seeing a little bit of the Bahamas, Nassau. I've never been to Jamaica, so I'd love to see what that's like. But I'm really, I really like engaging with the fans, and talking with them. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know, making a lot of new friends, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and what event or activity? I mean, that obviously that's what you're looking forward to, and that's one of the things we're looking forward to as well. But what activity or event do you think the fans should be the most excited about?
Well, I'm really looking forward to hanging out with the fans, whether it's at dinner or on the dance floor or at the pub or at the pool. In the lawn chairs, or just, I'm looking forward to, interacting with the fans and,
and the cool thing is with this, I know at certain events, they're kind of behind some red tape or you guys are kind of in your own section and it's like, you can look, but you can't touch, you can't get close and really talk to you guys. But this fan cruise is completely different, right? I mean, they're able to get right up next to you and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I love people touching me. Just touch me. Listen, you can touch me all the time. I think it was the Rocky Horror Picture Show that she said, touch me, touch me, touch me. So that's basically, I'm going to get a shirt that says, touch me. Yeah, it might not, it's not going to say feel me. It's going to just say touch me. So I like it. It'll be
Frank,
on the
can we collaborate?
It'll be on the front and the back. So
yeah.
Can we collaborate on that, Frank? Can we get a shirt that says touch me, Frank Stams?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how can we make it says, I'm Frank, touch me. Yeah.
We'll just, Burning River Sportscast will come up with T-shirts for each player.
Yeah. It's like St. Patrick's Day. Kiss me, I'm Irish. Touch me, I'm Frank. Yeah, no, listen. Here's what we should. This was a hard thing. You talk about going in the real world. I had a real hard time with this, and I want fans on the cruise to be ready for this. Listen, if we're having a good time and we do something good, say we're in a competition together, we're getting smacked on the bottom. And that really was a problem with HR when I got into the workforce, and I was going around in the office environment smacking some of my, female coworkers on the bottom. They said, listen, Frank, you can't do that here. So we're going to, listen, not only are they going to touch me, but there was a lot of touching going on and huddling up and that I'm used to. So you're going to get the true fan experience. There's going to be
one thing is guaranteed with Frank Stams, everyone's getting touched.
Yeah, I like it. Right.
Something good to look forward to there. But no, I also know that there is a competition for the Browns backers organizations out there. Just so everybody kind of knows, and I just want to recap what that is. The chapter with the most bookings will get an all expenses paid balcony cabin for 2 on the Browns fan cruise. The chapter with the highest members to bookings ratio also gets an all expenses paid ocean view cabin for 2. All members of the winning chapter will receive a specialty dining pass for 2 guests, and all members of the winning chapter will receive a Browns fan cruise commemorative Cleveland Browns autographed football. So with that being said, do you have anything that you want to say to Browns backers across the nation, in the world specifically?
I just want to say it's going to be an awesome. I'm so looking forward to it. I don't want to, I guess, I just think it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it, getting to know the fans, and I think it's just going to be a great experience. So I'm looking forward to the season as well.
Yeah, we can't wait either. I know we're excited. Now, I'm way more excited now that you got me all excited to touch Frank Stams,
Yeah.
So
I like it.
How can you not be excited?
See, it's contagious, right? Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to let people touch me too. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Nobody wants to touch you.
Okay. All right. No, but Frank, listen, it's been a real pleasure having you on here. We really appreciate it. I'm sure we will talk again soon. We'll definitely talk again on the fan cruise. But until then, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, it's been a pleasure.
We appreciate you being such a good sport.
Kenny, Ronnie, thank you so much for having me on the Burning River Sportscast. It's been my pleasure, so thank you. I'm Frank Stams, and you're listening to the Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns.
Man, awesome time speaking with Frank, huh?
Frank?
Frank the Tank.
Frank was insightful for sure.
Dude has some stories, huh?
Quite a few stories, and hopefully there's plenty of more where that came from.
I was going to say, I feel like we're going to spend a lot of time on the cruise talking with Frank about his time with the Browns. He has some stories, man.
I mean, I have more questions than answers, even after a 40-minute interview. That was incredible.
Everybody's touching on everybody. I don't know. But that'll take us to the Week 3 preview. All right. So this week we have the Tennessee Titans. Do you have any matchup previews or opposition research? Anything good you want to talk about before we get into this thing?
Just the fact that Ryan Tannehill is like the only middle-class quarterback left. We were just talking about quarterbacks need to stop.
They're all gone except Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill's the last holdout of he's almost good.
It's like you got top tier Ryan Tannehill and rookies.
He's almost good, but not good enough to be paid a whole lot of money. But he's good enough to get some money.
He's good enough to start everywhere he goes for less money than most people make.
Yeah, look, I just think this is an interesting game to handicap because Ryan Tannehill can play really well. And then at other times he's just such a wet blanket.
I do feel like he's just one of those guys that he had a lot of potential. I mean, it's not like he's bad by any means. He just never fully lived up to that potential.
He's just there.
Yeah, he's just kind of he's a solid quarterback.
And I think
that's all he is.
And I think that the team plays as Ryan Tannehill plays. And so
when he has a bad game, they lose.
Yeah, I mean, they've clearly got some talent on that team. Derrick Henry is King Henry. He worries me anytime that we play him because he's just so damn big.
He's the biggest man alive.
And there's just some days that he runs harder and angrier than others, and I don't know what gets him going, but if you're playing him on that day, it's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think this is a team with some some new talent that they've had in the offseason, and I don't know that it's a team that is expected to do a whole lot outside of the fact that their division isn't very good. So they may be a sneaky pick to win the division just because everyone else is so bad, but Jacksonville's there too. I would expect them to probably win the division. But outside of I just think those are your names, right? It's Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. That's the offense, and I don't know that they have a great supporting cast around them, but
which we'll get into all that. I'm going to start with I do have a couple position matchups I just want to highlight here. The first one, funny enough, you mentioned Ryan Tannehill, is the Browns secondary versus Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, we all know this. Derrick Henry is the focal point of the Tennessee offense. But here's the deal. While Ryan Tannehill is a solid quarterback historically, we're not sure what to expect out of Ryan Tannehill and what quarterback he is going to be week in and week out this year. And I guess that goes for most of his career, just in general. But he had
he's consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, he had a terrible week 1 and a loss to the Saints. And then he came back and had a really solid second week in a win against the Chargers. So in a high-scoring affair, and so I guess the question is, will he be able to complete some passes against the secondary, and will he be Dr. Jekyll, or will he be devoured by our DBs and look absolutely terrible and be Mr. Hyde all afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game has the potential to be really bad for Ryan Tannehill because
our
if the secondary plays as well as they played the other night, I think this is going to be a bad day for Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then my next matchup here is just the Browns defensive line versus the Tennessee offensive line. This kind of goes hand in hand with the first one that I listed here with the secondary versus Tannehill. But going forward, without Nick Chubb for the rest of this season, we will have to lean heavily on the defense, and we're going to have to win a lot of ugly games. And so with that in mind, the defensive line is going to, they're going to have to get home on Ryan Tannehill, not just this game, but just going forward in general. But they're going to have to get home on Ryan Tannehill and put him in a tough position where he's either being pressured or we're just getting the sack and we're causing turnovers, because that's going to be how we win games. You're not going to win the game ground and pound like we have all season long, or the last couple of years when we've won games. It's going to come on the back of the defense, and hopefully, eventually, Deshaun comes alive. But the defense is going to be number one.
And I would add to that, if defense is number one, the special teams is going to be number two, a very close number two. Zach's guy, Dustin Hopkins, is going to have to earn his money each week because.
Oh man, you get a D-Hop jersey yet?
Because I think
not yet.
Because I think a lot of those red zone drives that Nick Chubb used to pull a rabbit out of his ass, you won't have that anymore. So you'll be settling for more field goals as you go. So I think it's going to be imperative for not just Dustin Hopkins to make field goals. I also think Corey Bajorquez is going to get more work. I just think more drives are going to stall because of the lack of comfortability with your running game.
Yeah.
That the punter's all of a sudden going to matter. It's going to be trestle ball where it's like can we win ugly? Like if we have to win ugly because we have to win the field position game, to put us in position to have a long field goal at the end of the game to win, then fine. But I think that you're right. I think it's all those things together, and I think those two guys have a spotlight on them now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so, I mean, speaking of special teams, by the way, you remember last year we talked about possibly eventually doing a Cade York confidence meter, and we never kind of got around to it, but I kind of do want to install the Dustin Hopkins confidence meter, except I want it to be brought to you by Bone Man. And
well, we know Bone Man is rock hard over Dustin Hopkins.
Every time we talk about Dustin Hopkins, Bone Man jumps on and tells everybody how he's feeling at that point. I mean, right now he was quick to let us know, even though he missed a field goal, he's 5 of 6 so far. And so he came right back and drilled a 55-yarder. So, I propose that we come up with a Dustin Hopkins confidence meter brought to you by the Bone Man.
I'll see what I can find as animations this week.
But yeah, so as a team, the Tennessee Titans are 1-1. They're coming off a solid win against the Chargers. They've looked completely different in both their games so far this season. So your guess is as good as mine as to which team we will get. In my opinion, on paper, even without Nick Chubb, the Browns have the better team. But guess what? The game's not played on paper, so...
And the Chargers know that really well because they've played phenomenal.
First, the Chargers are the first team in NFL history to score over 50 points over their first 2 games and go 0-2.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive. But you know what that takes us to, Kenny?
What does it take us to?
The injury report.
We got to relive this again. Okay.
You didn't even want you don't like Tecmo Bowl anymore.
Yeah, here we go. Play the sounder.
It's just so good. The guy comes out with a stretcher.
Yeah, a little ambulance.
So what are the new additions this week, Kenny?
So obviously Nick Chubb, done for the season. Feels real bad. But actually a handful of names on both sides here coming into this week. I don't know that these are all like super impactful, but a lot of guys listed as questionable. From the Tennessee side, Amani Hooker, safety, questionable. Peter Skoronski, I know that he's someone that gets some time. I think he was their starting tackle. Is listed as questionable. The Nico Autry, defensive end, questionable. Luke Gifford, linebacker, questionable. Our boy Anthony Kendall, questionable.
He'll play.
Tier Tart, big defensive lineman, questionable. Harold Landry III, questionable. And Derrick Henry was limited at practice on Wednesday with a toe. So he's got the old dreaded turf toe.
Oh, no. No, not a toe.
And is officially questionable. So I would imagine many of those statuses are going to change as we get closer to game time, but that's who's out there right now. They got a couple of guys out for the season already, but none of them really are. I mean, Caleb Farley, Hassan Haskins, Shaquille Brown, Kyle Phillips. So see you later. On the Brown side of things, obviously Nick Chubb feels real bad.
Couldn't feel worse.
A number of Qs on our side this week as well. Anthony Walker, questionable. Jedrick Wills,
he'll play. He just dedicated the rest of the season to Nick Chubb. So
yeah,
not Jed Wills. Anthony Walker.
Jed Wills may be an interesting one if he can't go because
don't got a whole lot of depth anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you go to the swingman. I can't think of his name. The big guy that had to fight in the camp.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now. Zadarius Smith, also questionable. Hudson, yeah.
That's why we've got the bone man.
Taki, questionable. And Amari Cooper still having some groin and shoulder issues. And I know Greg Newsome has been listed as questionable, but I think he's just day-to-day with like some elbow soreness. So a number of Qs, but again, I think a lot of those are going to probably be just fine for the game on Sunday. But short week, short turnaround. You never know with some of these guys. Certainly Amari Cooper had a questionable designation going into this week's game, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to play at all. So I think he's one that we got to continue to watch because that is the only one that Deshaun Watson can count on right now as a receiver, apparently.
Apparently. It's the only one we know how to get the ball.
It's the only one we know how to throw it to. But that does it for the injury report.
And so with that, players to watch this week, we're going to start with you this week, Kenny. Who is your player? Did we start with you last week?
Start with you or Zach Bone.
Zach Bone. So we'll start with you this week, Kenny. Who is your player to watch in this game?
Who's my player to watch this game? I'm going Corey Bajorquez.
Hell yes, the punter.
Yeah. I do think that like
you and Bone, you should start your own show. It's just all about special teams.
Look, I think he's going to be more important than people realize. And a couple kicks that put that offense that isn't very good in a tough position gives way to your defense making a big play here and there. And I think they're going to, like we just talked about, have to win ugly, have to find creative ways to win with this defensive scoring or special team scoring. And so for me, in a game like this against a team that they're really only going to be able to run the ball as kind of their entire offense, unless Ryan Tannehill pulls a rabbit out of his ass.
Everybody's pulling rabbits out of their asses. It's really weird.
So many rabbits in asses. What's a rabbit sound like even? Anyway, I just think the field position game is going to play heavy here. So
according to Kenny Thunder, rabbits sound like.
I'm going to go Bajorquez, and it's not just because I have faith in Bajorquez. Bajorquez has also shanked a few kicks in the last.
He doesn't look like the Bajorquez we're used to.
He can really bomb it, but sometimes you don't need to bomb it. You need to keep it out of the end zone. So we need Bajorquez to be able to hit some of those inside the 20 and inside the 10.
Bone Man, who you got for your player to watch?
I'm going to go the entire running back trio or whoever it's going to be, Pierce Strong, Ford, and if Hunt gets any time, I think they'll work him into it.
I think the fact that he knows the offense and everything, he might actually play more than people were expecting him to play.
And just,
as long as he stayed in shape, I guess.
Just them taking care of the ball, I think the O-line will continue to do what it does, and they make running backs look good. We're going to get yards, and
they didn't last week. I mean, even though he had over 100 yards, they well, I guess they made the running back look okay. The quarterback looked terrible.
195 rushing yards.
It's still, Dearness Johnson.
I take it back. I take it back.
Last year, even
it was a good point, Bone. He's wrong.
I was wrong.
He's wrong.
Yeah, I think they're still going to get their yards, and just a matter of taking care of the football because you trusted Chubb to hold on to the rock. He didn't fumble.
He never fumbled.
So,
so I mean, that's a good one. My player to watch is Deshaun Watson. Look, your safety blanket in Nick Chubb is gone. You are a QB that is paid $230 million fully guaranteed. You need to step up and lead this football team. You need to get back to at least as good as you were in Houston. And your time needed to get there has officially run out. Everyone's looking at you and leaning on you and counting on you to dig us out of this dark place. And we need to know right now, there's no more time to wait. Will you step up or will you crumble? And so my player to watch is Deshaun Watson. More so now than ever. I'll throw in a bonus one. Player to watch on the other side of the ball. Not on the other side of the ball on Cleveland's side, on the other side of the field.
Anthony
Kendall. Our boy from Baldwin Wallace made the team. As we talked about in a previous episode, he made the team for the Tennessee Titans as an undrafted free agent out of Baldwin Wallace.
It's tough to do.
And he's currently excelling on special teams, especially on the kickoff. I've seen at least 3 or 4 tackles where he's tackled somebody inside the 15 on kickoff. So keep an eye out for Anthony Kendall and what they do if they give us a chance to return the ball.
If anybody's going to have a big play against us, I hope it's him.
True. And so that'll take us to the King of the North.
King of the North.
All right, so as I mentioned earlier in the show, King of the North has taken a terrible turn this week. While I am still the reigning, defending King of the North, as you can see by my crown that won't stay on above my headphones here, I am now in last place. Well, at least tied for last place with Kenny. And it feels real bad. And I'll ask you again, Kenny, how did you do this all of last year? Because if I felt like this much of a piece of trash every week, I'd probably at least punch myself in the face, if not do more harm.
Look, here's the thing. You have to just really get in touch with your inner trash panda. I recommend meditation. There's a couple of good books you can find out there, and going for walks.
Oh. I'm reading How to Not Kill Yourself. No, I mean, it's a tough place to be. It's unfamiliar territory for me. It feels weird. I don't like it. So let's just go ahead and get into this week's picks, so I can hopefully redeem myself and get back on track here. So first off, we've got the Colts visiting the Ravens. I'll go ahead and take this one first. I think this, especially with Anthony Richardson probably out with a concussion, I think this is an easy game for the Ravens. Ravens win it. I don't even want to give a score. It's probably a blowout. Ravens go 3-0 and are easily atop the division now.
I actually think this is going to be the closest game of the division games.
You do?
Because whether Anthony Richardson comes back or Gardner Minshew plays, I actually have a lot of faith.
I forgot Gardner Minshew. Nice.
I have a lot of faith that Gardner Minshew is a player in this league. So I do think this could be closer. I do think the Ravens are the better team. So I'm going Baltimore as well.
Bone Man?
Yeah, I think Ravens. Ravens had this home game. Lamar Jackson, I think they're going to take it.
All right, so far there will be no movement in the King of the North standings. Next up, we got Steelers visiting the Raiders. This one I think is actually going to be close. Both teams, not very good. Even though the Steelers just beat us, they're not a very good team. On paper, if you look at it, there's no way we should have lost that game, but we did. The Raiders are bad as well. The Steelers, I guess, are less bad. I don't know. I'm just it's a toss-up for me, but I'm going Steelers in this one. Just because they've got to keep pace with us.
I've never been more convinced that the Steelers are a trash football team than I am after watching this week.
Yeah.
They were really bad. we got in our own way. Obviously, the Nick Chubb injury was devastating, but we lost that game to ourselves. The Steelers didn't take it from us. So I think they're trash. I think the Raiders, they're the home team, so I give them the edge.
And Bowman?
Yeah, I'm going Raiders as well. Home team. I just feel like Pittsburgh's terrible.
They're really bad.
Yeah.
Oh man,
your quarterback sucks. I mean, they have TJ Watt. Excuse me. He could make a difference, but I just don't think it'll be enough.
They also have Mike Tomlin, so like these games where you're two bad teams, Mike Tomlin is kind of the deciding factor.
That is a fair point there.
But this is where there could be. It's either going to be really bad for me or really good for me. So next up, Rams at the Bengals. Let's start with Bowman.
I got the Rams. I think Cincinnati is just going to continue on their downward spiral at the beginning of the year.
Nice. I hope so. Kenny?
Look, I know that the report came out this week that Joe Burrow had re-aggravated his calf injury. I guess they're not sure whether or not he's going to play. I would expect him to play because he's Joe Burrow and because he just signed that big contract. But the front office may also not want him to play because
he just signed that big contract.
And you want him for long term. But that being said, I just think that the Bengals, without a healthy Joe Burrow, are not a good football team, so I'm going to go Rams.
All right, and I'm going Rams for all the same reasons. I'm actually assuming Joe Burrow doesn't play, and even if he does, he just re-aggravated that injury last week, so there's a chance he could re-aggravate it again. So we've all got the Rams in this one. And then finally, Tennessee versus Cleveland in Cleveland. Kenny, who you got?
Look, I think in a game like this, like last week I went with Cleveland, and
every time you pick Cleveland, they seem to lose.
I said, they haven't given me a reason yet to be let down or to think otherwise. They did everything they needed to do in week one. It looked like a complete football team, played a good game. Honestly, I think this game is going to come down to field position and coaching, and I'm going Vrabel, Tennessee over Cleveland at home.
Oh, man, and so it begins. Bone Man, who you got?
I got to pick Cleveland. I don't think the team loses this game after that just devastating loss last week. I think they're going to find a way to do it. I think the run game is going to be better than we think. I have a lot of faith in our O-line, and I think we're going to take care of the football and eliminate some of these turnovers.
I hope you're right. And I have Cleveland as well for a lot of the same reasons. But I think the biggest thing is, I mentioned it just a little bit ago, Anthony Walker came out, it was either yesterday or today. We're recording on a Wednesday. He came out either yesterday, Tuesday, or today, Wednesday, and said that he's, the rest of this season for the whole team is dedicated to Nick Chubb. And I just think that the team is actually going to rally around that. It's tough to do in the moment against the Steelers when it just happened. But as you mentioned earlier, Bone, with some time to process things and kind of move on, I just think that they will be able to rally around Nick Chubb, all of our fallen hero, and get a win, at least this week for sure, at home. So
final thought on this game.
Sure.
We've all seen the T-shirts or heard the jokes about having the Browns be your pallbearer at your funeral so they can let you down one last time.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony Walker dedicating the season to Nick Chubb. If they finish 6-11 or 7-10, that's kind of what it feels like. We dedicated this to you, bro. You're 7-10. Enjoy it.
That would probably be the most Browns thing that we could do. So
enjoy these 7 wins.
Now that you mention it, I don't know. Thank you. You always like to piss in my cornflakes. All right, so once again, that takes us to the Burning River Sportscast Hot Take Hotline. Would you guys please call our Hot Take Hotline? We want to hear from you.
Tired of paying for it, nobody calls.
Yeah, we want to hear from you guys. We want to put somebody on air. We know that Browns fans have a lot to say, so we want those hot takes. We want them on the Hot Take Hotline so we can play them for everybody else.
Share your hot takes.
I see the numbers. I know people are listening, so call in.
Yeah.
330-227-8080.
330-227-8080.
330-227-8080. Call now. Operators are not standing by. And be sure to check out our gear, www.thetappedmedia.com/shop. Go to show specific, go to Burning River Sportscast, and get whatever you want. But that'll do it for us this week. In closing here, what can we expect next week, Kenny?
What can we expect next week? Another week of football without Nick Chubb, that's for sure.
Come on.
We're going to recap the Titans game and hopefully be celebrating a squeaky clean Browns win. And we will break down the matchup for week 4 with the Baltimore Ravens. We do also have another interview on deck with another Browns backers chapter. Actually, locally here, we have representing the Pumpkin Patch Browns backers. That's right. Pumpkinhead himself.
Hell yes.
And then we will close it out.
An icon.
We will close it out with another interview from a Browns alumni. The Talk Cleveland Browns Fan Cruise.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. Tappin Media is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Tappin Media and Burning River Sportscast. This podcast is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Burning River Sportscast, and on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter at Burning River Pod. You can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podcast, Castro, Good Pods, and so many more. You know what it takes for
This is officially my new favorite part of the show. Just how fast you get through where to find our podcast. It's just entertaining to me every week.
That takes us to Facts for Days. Are we cutting it?
No.
We're going. I am pretty quick, right? I'm getting there. It gets faster every week.
Yeah, girls hate that. Facts for Days. Number 1.
Let's hear it.
The entire surface of your skin is replaced every month, which put another way means you have about 1,000 different skins in your life.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's a lot
like a lizard.
That's a lot of skins.
Snake. Huh? It's like what is it, a snake skin?
I think you lose 30,000 skin cells every hour. Number 2.
Ew, that's all dust just floating around. Disgusting.
We are
breathing it in.
Be sure to dust your homes.
We are disgusting creatures. On average, you fart enough in one day to fill an entire party balloon.
In your case, more.
I could probably fill 2 or 3. We're having a party. Number 3. You ever watch Naked and Afraid?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of stuff that can kill you out there.
Lots of things.
One of the first things you got to do is find water, and you got to find food. You got to find time to build a shelter.
Yeah. Water is most important, though. You got to find that. Right.
Water is more important, but also important to note that lack of sleep can kill someone sooner than starvation.
No way.
Chronic sleep deprivation is linked to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, obesity, and a host of other life-threatening conditions, including sudden death.
Get yourself some sleep, guys. What are you doing?
Definitely get some sleep.
I need more. That's for sure. Bone, you get enough sleep?
No, not at all.
Bone's
I'm actually really, really tired right now.
Bone is not going to die soon. He's probably the healthiest of all of us on this podcast.
Yeah,
pretty soon we'll have a new studio. I hate to jump the gun there, but eventually we'll have a new studio here, and Bone will be on camera eventually. And all you ladies out there, you're going to be excited because he's a good-looking man compared to us.
Can we make Bone like what was the Daniel Tosh where he wore like a specific type of shirt every season? Like, can we make him wear like muscle shirts to start like every week?
Yeah.
To wear, like,
I like this idea.
It sounds great. Yeah.
Bonus fact for days. I have a number 4 this week.
What is it?
More germs are transferred by shaking hands than by kissing. Our hands come into contact with millions of germs and bacteria each day. So instead of salutations with your hands, we might as well just make out with each other. Don't just be a part of the problem. Be the whole damn problem.
And only you can prevent river fires.
Burning River Sportscast! Burning River!
Burning River is burning. No, the river's not burning anymore. It was once. We didn't start the fire.
We didn't start it. It wasn't alive. Was it alive? Was it alive? Live? What happened? You guys stopped?
No.
Burning River Sportscast. I'm gonna poop so bad.
Just let it out.
What in hell?
Browns Fan Cruise and the Burning River Sportscast. What better combination could you possibly think of?
Motorboat? You play the motorboat? You motorboat son of a bitch. You old sailor, you.
By the way, I want my foreskin back.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
We might as well just make out with each other.
I have seen the top of the mountain, and it is good.
The weather outside is weather.
I just can't stop hurting.
It doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah, I love people touching me. Just touch me. Listen, you can touch me all the time. I think it was the Rocky Horror Picture Show that she said, touch me, touch me, touch me. So that's basically, I'm going to get a shirt that says, touch me. Yeah, it might not, it's not going to say feel me, it's going to just say touch me. So I like it. It'll be
Frank,
on the
can we collaborate?
It'll be on the front and the back. So
Yeah.
Can we collaborate on that, Frank? Can we get a shirt that says touch me, Frank Stams?
yeah, yeah. Well, how can we make it says, I'm Frank, touch me?
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
If we're having a good time and we do something good, say we're in a competition together, we're getting smacked on the bottom. And that really was a problem with HR when I got into the workforce, when I was going around the office environment smacking some of my, female coworkers on the bottom. They said, listen, Frank, you can't do that here.
Erroneous on both counts.
Wow.
But damn.
You know why, mister? Because you drove a Hyundai to get here tonight. I drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name. Ralph, I don't know where you're getting your statistics.
Where's Logo Girl when you need her?
I desperately want to make love to a schoolboy. Down goes Anderson! Down goes Anderson!
No way. You just finger bang their salad. What?
You first get shocked, and then you get the shocker.
Today's episode was brought to you by Towpath Vodka. Towpath Vodka, an award-winning, ultra-premium, extremely smooth, high-quality vodka. 6 times distilled and made from Midwest corn and Ohio fruit. Clean and crisp, a truly high-quality spirit made right here in Northeast Ohio. Available locally in Northeast Ohio and online in 46 states. Towpath Vodka.
Hey Browns fans, this is your chance to join the company of some of the Browns' all-time greats on the first ever Browns fan cruise. Picture this. For 5 unforgettable days, you're sailing across the beautiful Caribbean Sea, reliving the Browns' greatest moments, getting autographs, snapping photos, and celebrating on the beach with your favorite Browns alumni, like Josh Cribbs, Webster Slaughter, Eric Metcalf, and a dozen others. Book now and take advantage of our easy, budget-friendly payment plans on this once-in-a-lifetime, all-inclusive cruise adventure. The clock's ticking, Browns fans. To book your cabin and for more information, visit brownsfancruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today. Browns Fan Cruise, where diehard fans and Browns alumni come together for the trip of a lifetime. Don't wait, secure your spot today, and go Browns!